And just so you know, the last 30 seconds are in this video live.
What's going on, everybody? It's Matt, aka the Lumberjack Landlord. Super excited to have my two buddies here with me. Dion Talk Financial Freedom. Dion, how you doing, my friend?
Howdy, I'm doing marvelous. I am ready for everything Millennial Mike is going to throw at us.
That's awesome. And Mike, our special guest, we went with the Diet Coke of Mike.
Yeah, right. I'm the off-brand generic version. I'm the Kirkland signature brand, Mike.
Yeah, I like some Kirkland products. Lay off.
Yeah.
But we got our good buddy Mike Zuber. He's out for the day, but we wanted to still do three Amigos. And we said, why not? Let's do a live stream. This is a little bit ridiculous, but why not? We'll just do a live stream. We'll do it live and hang out, see who wants to come and hang out with us and listen to real estate while they should be working for the man. Like I still work for the man because I'm still not retired. So Mike, super excited to have you here. We are live. And so dealer's choice. What did you want to talk about, Millennial Mike? What was a burning sensation in your mind that you wanted to come and hang out, talk three amigos and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. Talk to people just in case they haven't seen the Millennial Mike story, how you invest. Let's talk about that just a little bit so we can kind of give people an idea of who you are and what you do.
All right, well, who I am. Well, I also still work for the man. In fact, I work for the man. I work for the government, unfortunately. So I work for the man, and I got many years left, unfortunately, to work more than you, Matt. And Dion, congratulations on being retired. So, I'm jealous. Who am I? I mean, I'm a regular guy. I don't have a college education. I grew up extremely poor. I'm the oldest of 6 kids. I invest out of state at a distance in the Midwest from Seattle area where I live. I own single family houses, a couple of duplexes. I house hack one property here in the Seattle area. Dion and I live pretty close to each other. We see each other, I don't know, every couple of months or something. We've gone shooting, a few things like that. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm just a regular person who, unlike most people who start YouTube channels about real estate investing, kind of like you or Zuber or Dion, you started your channels after you already made it, either mostly to financial freedom or after being successful and having a bunch of units. And when I first started watching real estate related content back in 2000, I started a long time ago, but when I first started really watching it in like 2016, 17, I noticed that the Graham Stephans and the Grant Cardones had their channels about how they did it, but what they were doing was telling you their version of what happened years earlier. And I wanted to know, is that kind of just coming through rose-colored glasses? Is it sugar-coated? What was it really like to go through the journey of becoming financially free? So I started recording videos of myself when I had $0 in the bank account, and I was renting, and I was poor, and I just had a goal and a dream to be a real estate investor. And so on my channel are videos from me, literally video number 1. Yo, I'm going to make this video series. I got nothing. Let's see how long it takes. And now I'm still here just plugging away at it. But that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
Well, I love it. I think that that's an awesome story and shockingly so much like the rest of ours. Yeah. Right. So it's like we just got in there, did the work and do it on the daily. Dion, any thoughts before we kind of jump in there, my friend?
So I think it's really cool that Millennial Mike is sharing his story while he's doing it, because one of the complaints we usually have is if you bought a rental property in 1982, you look like a genius. If you bought a rental property in 2008, you currently look like a genius.
Yeah.
There was a crash, prices went down, rents went up, but 14 years later, prices are higher in pretty much almost every market that I've heard of. So a lot of people say, you can't do it now.
Right. All the time.
All the time. Right. Forever. There has always been a reason. I literally have a post-it list of the last decade of every reason, every year, why there was a reason not to buy, a reason you can't buy now, a reason you should wait. And people like Mike should be doing this because, I mean, I get it. You don't have people's most favorite job, Mike. You don't have the safest job. You don't have the career trajectory safest job either. Kind of like software sales, like Matt. Next month, there could be a budget shift. There could be a social climate shift, and your jobs are just gone.
Yes, sure. That's very true. Yeah. I mean, in our job, you know, what Mike and I do, you have two bad quarters and you put on what's called a PIP. It's performance improvement plan. And if you don't change your numbers in the next 90 days, you're gone. And it's really hard to get off of a PIP. I put lots of reps on PIPs. Thankfully, I've never been on one. I've had a bad quarter, but I've never had two successive bad quarters. But that's a scary thing. But it's one of the sad realities of being a sales rep and being in enterprise sales. It's just part of the reality of our jobs and kind of what we do. So I did so yesterday, so I don't think we had really necessarily anything we were going to specifically talk about, but I did a walkthrough yesterday on that deal that I have, which has a bunch of different buildings. And so we did the walkthrough yesterday with the agent, and the guy, as you can imagine, super nice guy, 75 years old, getting ready to retire. And it was really kind of funny. He's got a memory issue. And so he has notes on everything throughout the entire property. And he's like, I can take all those off. I was like, don't do that. Why would you do that? I'll save you all the time. I'll take advantage of that. So wanted to call him out. The guy's name is Frank, super nice guy. I'm super pumped for him. He's retiring. He's going to Florida. This is his exit out of New England to be down to Florida full time. He loves to marlin fish. But super great guy, really excited that we got to do a deal with him, and that deal should close in the next few weeks. I actually was able to ask him, I said, I have a copy of the property cover. It says the lot line's here. He goes, yeah, he goes, here's the actual lot line. I'm getting like a third of an acre more land than I thought I was getting. So like, don't ever count on those plot plans that people like attach to the listing. A lot of times that's wrong. So he actually had a survey that had been done and showed that. So very grateful for that, because it's a lot more land with that deal. So I'm excited. Go ahead.
I had somebody reach out with a message the other day asking about lot lines and showing me basically the Google Maps line around the property. And I was like, go to your county.
Yes.
Like, see what they actually have in there.
That's exactly true. So funny story about lot lines is one of my flip houses, I bought the house, did it, the whole 9 yards. It was great. The neighbor behind me was brutal. And the fence was in horrible shape. And I was like, you know what? We'll redo a bunch of the fence. So we were redoing a bunch of the fence, and they come out for final inspection and they go, oh. And I was like, oh, what? They're like, that fence, did you just do that? And I was like, we just replaced panels. Yeah, the neighbor complained that's on their land. It's in the buffer zone. And I was like, they didn't have any problem when I was putting it up. And he goes, yeah, it's in the buffer zone. So they had said that it was in the buffer zone based on Google Maps. I went downtown, walked it off, walked off the pins. For those of you who don't know, most lot lines, they have pins that go from one pin to a next. Sometimes it's just a pin in the ground. Sometimes it's a pin with orange tape on it. Sometimes it's a pin in the ground where it's flush to the ground. It might just be like a red marker. There's a bunch of different ways, but we actually looked at it, and when we measured off, we were actually 9 inches within the buffer. So we didn't have to touch the fence. Still our fence.
Nice.
So I said, well, now that makes a whole lot more sense. So lot lines are important. Fences make good neighbors, but lot lines also make good neighbors and make sure that they are correct. If you guys are ready, we can jump in. We can start taking some questions and then, digress, because I think we're in the middle of a lot of people's workday that are slowly joining, and they're going to multitask with us. So we'll jump in. So Nicholas Massey, Lumberjack, that intro trailer is great. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah, my guys put that together. That was the first piece of content we ever created, was that trailer. So we're using it now. It's excited to have it. The guys did a great job. Chester Williams, good afternoon. Matt and Dion, good afternoon. Dion in his second out of body experience. Howdy. All Nighter Hider, good to have you here. And All Nighter Hider says we can start now. That's gracious of you. We appreciate that. We are here for you. Chester Williams apparently identifies with the fact that he is working and listening to our live stream.
Good boy.
Chester Williams, Millennial Mike is a Washington State trooper, right? Question mark.
I am a law enforcement officer in the state of Washington. All of the opinions I have are mine exclusively, and I do not represent any official agency or government entity whatsoever. And yeah, I'm just going to leave it at that because, you know, people like to get grumpy about that type of stuff. But yes, I work as a law enforcement officer as the premier law enforcement officer agency in the state of Washington. So you take that for what you will. And I have a wonderful hat. Dion's jealous of my hat.
Let the debate begin.
Right.
I think I have a trooper hat here.
I did not confirm whether I was not or not a trooper. If you have one, who'd you take it from?
That's awesome.
That's what I think when I think trooper.
You know what? Could you imagine? I just walk up to somebody and be like, hey, Officer Newton with this agency, just so you know, be an audio video recorded, reason for the stop, and you just drop this thing on their lap. Like, what would the person do? You know? It's worse than super troopers.
That's awesome.
So not that you're a trooper, but when I was in law enforcement, troopers made about 50 to 55% of what deputies and city officers made. There was just a problem in Washington State. I think they fixed it since then, but I mean, it was 2005 to 2008 era, you know, where they were just not, I don't know how they got anybody to sign up for it. It was barely above minimum wage.
Yeah, that was a major problem for a long time was people would go through that academy. And then as soon as they graduated and got their commission card, they would then quit and immediately be hired by another agency for a double. So, and they have fixed that problem. And now there is actually a law in the state of Washington that says that agency will be paid the average of the highest 6. So they're always at number 3, essentially.
Nice.
Oh, that's better. All right. All-nighter hider. Formal education seems to be a wall for people trying to be financially free.
Yeah.
I mean, I think so. I think that the argument that I'll always have with people about the educational system, and you can see what I post in the different groups, is really just that I think that it does an amazing job at creating employees. You know, I think that if you are entrepreneurial, if you are thinking outside the box, that is a really fast way to get C's and D's. And I think that it's a testament to the fact that all 3 of us I am the one with the least amount of education, but you 2 guys were able to graduate. And I think that we've all been super successful in our lives doing different things and growing our wealth, and doing that without a college degree. So yeah, I know that one of my favorite questions during a job interview is, where's your education? I don't see it on your resume. And I always say, I actually don't have any. I didn't get out of high school. Like, oh, interesting. Has it ever been a problem? You know, your education ever been a problem? I said, no, I don't mind people with college degrees working for me at all. Usually there's a mindset shift I have to give, but they tend to be pretty good employees. And of course, that's the only answer that I could ever think of when it came to answering about that. So I think that it's really much more about the person, and certainly 4 more years of data can make you smarter if you understand it, use it, and apply it. But I think that that's the key. I think that we're seeing now the benefits to people not necessarily going to college for 4 years, but spending that time in careers and in paths and trade schools. Good friend of mine's an electrician. He's 25 years old, 0 college debt, makes $65,000 a year, and he's way further past all of his friends that have degrees. And so, yeah, I think everyone has to make their own decision. But I can tell you this, there's no replacement for hustle. There's just no replacement for working hard and doing the work.
There's 3 things that keep people poor. The first one is our education system. People thinking that you have to have an education, people thinking that student debt is the path to financial success. And if you've ever played Cash Flow, the Robert
Cash Flow Quadrant.
Cash Flow the game.
Yeah.
Cash Flow Quadrant was his second book. I haven't played it, but I've listened to Zuber talk about it often, and he'll talk about he's played it enough to where he knows if he starts the game as a lawyer or a doctor, he's going to lose because you randomly get assigned your career because that comes with such education and such debt structure. I absolutely agree. That's probably one of the biggest problems with reaching financial freedom right now is people thinking school's the way to do it.
Yeah, I graduated high school during the middle of the Great Recession, 2009. So it just kicked off. And I watched a bunch of my friends go to very expensive schools for $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year to get a degree to be a teacher. And I sat around and thought to myself, I don't know what I want to do, but I don't want to go into debt. I don't think that's a good idea. And best decision I ever made. On top of that, I think our education system is completely antiquated. You know, most of what you do, being the one here who was most recently in school, even though it's been 13 years for me, you know, it's a lot of memorize all of this information in our 6-week long unit so that you can regurgitate it onto a test and then expel all of it from your mind so that you can now memorize an entirely new set of information and regurgitate that on the next test. Very few subjects in school are actually built like principle upon principle. Math's probably the only one, in science are the only two that I can think of where you have to remember those calculations in order to keep going. So the entire system's antiquated because in the era of unlimited technology, I can look anything up in the entire human history worth of information in less than a second by just typing it into Google. So why are we focusing on teaching kids how to recall data? It's a useless skill to have. It's dumb. And yeah, I think the actual structure of school, okay, you're going to come in for 8 hours, you're going to work for an hour, get a break, work for an hour, get a break. Here's your 30-minute lunch. They're teaching you to be an employee. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with being an employee. For some people, that is a noble endeavor. That's a great goal. That's a good aspiration. We need employees. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's a group of people out there like you guys who want to do something more, who want to be something more, who want to be the business owner. And that's where school misses the mark. There's nothing, even in the business clubs, there's nothing that actually teaches you how to harness that entrepreneurial spirit and do something with business. You pretty much have to go find that on your own. And it can be tricky to find.
I can confirm you do have to find it on your own.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there was no YouTube when I dropped out in the 9th grade. That was 1990. 1990 was when I
dropped out in 1990.
Yeah,
I was born in 1990.
I was 13. 13, almost 14. Yeah, 1990.
1990. I was in Saudi Arabia and Kuwait planting flowers.
Nice. Hippie Dion to the rescue.
Nice. All right, Chester Williams. You can't get much more the man than that, I guess. I'm not sure who that's for, but sure. I think we're all in our own right with that. We all identify as such. Robert Farnelli, hello. Time for multitasking live stream where I will be listening and working. Good for you, Robert. Chester Williams. Okay. First question from Millennial Mike. What was the original motivation for investing at a distance? And follow up, what specifically was the appeal for the market that you chose?
That's a great question. So initially, when I bought my house hack here in Seattle, I was $450,000. It was the top of my price point that I could afford. I barely squeezed into this. I got it. I was extremely happy that I did. And I didn't know Dion at the time. Maybe he could have coached me a little bit differently. But I sat around and said to myself, how in the world am I going to save up a 20% down payment to buy a rental property when houses are now 500, 600, 700,000. And for perspective, my duplex that I bought in 2018 at 450 now appraises at over 700. How do I save a 20% down payment? That's a lot of money. And so I was pretty much sitting there saying to myself, well, I guess I'm going to be saving for years. Well, at that time, Michael Zuber had introduced me to somebody I refer to as my mentor. His name's Mark. He's got a YouTube channel, Maskey Finance. And Mark was investing in Gary, Indiana. Now, if you've ever done a Google search of Gary, Indiana, you're probably scared of that area. It's been referred to as America's most miserable city, and it is very, very miserable. It was victim of deindustrialization. It's part of the Rust Belt when jobs left America because of NAFTA in the 70s. Population dropped from 200,000 to just over 60,000 right now. I mean, it's a horror story there. Abandoned houses everywhere. 1/3 of all houses in Gary are abandoned. High schools are abandoned. It's a terrible area, right? You read this and you say, how could anyone invest there? That's what I thought, at least, when he said you should give it a shot. But I watched Mark grow from his first few rentals. So he had a few in like Alabama and he had a few in Virginia, and then he started buying in Gary. And I watched him go from like 6 to 25 over a period of like a year. And I was like, well, he's got no reason to lie to me. He's not selling me anything. He's clearly having success. He was the closest person that I had a close relationship with, who was a successful real estate investor I spoke with all the time. And it really came down to, I can just copy and paste his strategies into my life. Why not use the same market? So he hooked me up with a turnkey provider. I'm going to buy a fully remodeled house with a tenant already in it, paying value. I know what the returns, there's no guesswork. I just got to buy it. And I did. And then from there, you start to, you're building connections and you're building relationships, and you realize, probably what you guys have realized here, that most of your conversations you have with your tenants and interactions, there's just a lot of phone calls. Well, you can do a phone call at any distance across the planet.
Sure.
Now, both of you self-manage, but a lot of people who invest in their own markets don't. They still use a property manager. So if you're using a property manager in your own backyard, it's not really much different to go 1,000 miles or 2,000 miles. I don't have to go and see properties. I have people that I trust, a team that I've built that can help me inspect the properties, deal with the tenants, get good tenants, maintain the leases, do an eviction if I have to. And you just put the systems in place to be successful. So that was a long answer. Sorry, fellas.
No, it's perfect. And we didn't know each other. I wouldn't have coached you to do anything different. I think house hacking is important in an expensive market. And because of your job, you live in King County, but I wouldn't own a property in King County if somebody gave it to me. So you invested at a distance, smart move. The thing that I would add now is you have been house hacking more than a year in an expensive area. So you got the low owner occupied, low down payment, best interest rate loan. That would cash flow probably $2,000 a month or more if you moved out and to repeat a cash flow, another house hack with another duplex. That would be 5 to 8 houses in Gary, Indiana to equal the cash flow from that one move.
Yep, you're
so keep investing
right.
at a distance, but every couple of years, it's not that hard to move, and you double the size of your cash flow faster.
No, you're 100% correct. We've had that conversation before. I should, and I need to, and I have been looking and studying my own market that I live in a little bit more closely, because it would be beneficial to just hop over to some other house, pick up all the rental income that I'm going to get from this unit. And I just want to make sure I answer the Chester's question properly. So what was one of the main motivating factors to go to Gary, Indiana? It's way cheaper. I could afford to actually invest there, but there's a lot of cheap markets and you can get burned. So you actually have to know what you're doing, have the connections, have the, I don't know if the experience is the right word, but be able to connect with people who are going to steer you in the right direction. But yes, houses that I've bought there, $30,000, $29,000, $60,000, $50,000. I mean, they're cheap houses, right? And they're not just pieces of garbage. I'm not a slumlord. I make sure they are beautiful or they get remodeled to be beautiful.
Yeah, I think it's interesting in that strategy, certainly for our area, it's too expensive to do that. I don't want to be a long distance landlord, but the challenge that I've always seen is if I'm getting $3,000 a month for rent, when the roof goes bad and it's $7,000, it's not a big deal. That's where I think the number of roofs, that's what's always scared me about investing kind of less expensively, is that the returns that are there, if you're making 300 or 200 bucks a month instead of 2,000 a month, the challenge is a roof costs maybe 20% more here than it does there, because labor obviously is going to be cheaper there. But that's what's one of the things that kind of interests me in volume is, and that's what I'm really always trying to drive at with my stuff, is high enough rents that we can take care of doing a roof or a furnace or a heating system or something like that, because to replace that in any of those houses, it's likely only 20% less than a more expensive market. And how much, what's your really return on capital? You'd rather be making 6% on 3,000 than 6% on 1,000. So I'm very interested to see kind of longer term, kind of what that looks like.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, you make a really good point. And it is something that I have thought about, because one major repair can just wipe you out for that year on that property. And because of that reason, I've made sure that every house I've bought, the oldest roof I bought was 7 years old, because I want to avoid a major expense. Now, obviously there's still other major things that could happen, but only time's going to tell at the end of the day, once I get all of the units in place, and operating over a long enough time, is it going to be worth it? I think it will be. I mean, I've been doing pretty well so far, but I guess we'll see.
Do you know what the affordability index in Gary is?
No, I don't. I haven't actually done the calculations, but I mean, they're so inexpensive. And what we see, because Gary is within driving distance of Seattle, what I'm seeing a lot of, or not Seattle, Chicago. Gary's within driving distance of Chicago.
Quite the commute. That's a Dion commute.
My bad. It's, it's only a 30-mile drive, 45 minutes. A lot of people from Chicago, and this is why I'm not worried about the city depopulating. People are moving away from unbelievably expensive to rent and buy in Chicago. They're moving further and further out and willing to live in these very cheap places and commute in. And I figure this would be the case because, as Dion mentioned, I actually don't live in King County. I do work in King County. I work in Seattle. I live just a mile or two outside of it. And I drive 45 miles in because it saves you thousands of dollars a month in rent. And until gas prices got skyrocketed, it actually used to pencil out. But unfortunately, with $6 a gallon up here.
So I have a short video coming out. I think it's this weekend or next Tuesday on the flaw in the affordability index. That a lot of people are looking at it. NAR puts this out. Your California Association puts this out. Your local real estate group might say, here's what the average income is. Here's what the average house costs. Here's what your affordability index is from 2019 and sooner or older. Before that,
older. Yeah.
Words are hard. It made sense. But since 2020, homeschooling and remote work and working out of the office 1 or 2 days a week and alternating so people aren't interacting with each other is more possible than any point in time. So we have more commuters that are 1 or 2 days a week to commute an hour and a half. Sure, they're not going in 5 days a week. We had Pinterest paid $89 million to break the lease in San Francisco, gave every employee $20,000 to relocate. Those people are living somewhere, and some of them might go, I could buy a house for 20 grand in Gary, Indiana, and then my money goes really far there. So the affordability index has a flaw if that's the only metric you're looking at now.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think for the longest time, New Hampshire has been that. New Hampshire's been a big time Massachusetts commuter area. There's what we call Silicon Alley, not Valley, but Silicon Alley, which was a lot of high tech and fintech firms in Boston, just outside of. Almost every major firm has a presence there. And those jobs pay based on a lot of them being Bay Area based tech companies. So they're not afraid to pay, well into the 6 figures for these great jobs. And a lot of people to that end, you can buy an $800,000 ranch in some of these towns there in Massachusetts, or you can buy a $400,000 ranch just across the border in New Hampshire. The bigger change has been New Hampshire doesn't have any income tax, Mass does. And if you get actually designated as a working from home employee, you don't pay that income tax. So for me, that's what I actually changed years ago. I made that part of my contract was I am a New Hampshire employee. So I don't pay Mass tax. Massachusetts, the company, that's where the company is based, but I never go there. I work from home. That's my home office. That's where I work from. And so because of that, I don't pay income tax on my income because New Hampshire doesn't have an income tax.
We deal with that here along the border, and not the Canadian Vancouver, but the Washington Vancouver. A lot of people live in Washington because you don't have income tax, and they work or commute to Oregon to shop because you don't have sales tax. So they play the best part of it.
Yeah, best of both worlds.
Love that. Let's see. Robert Farinelli. I was in Northwood Monday. I should have drove by to see Matt's hopefully new score. Yeah, so Northwood's probably about 30 minutes from the new place I bought. All-nighter hider. Being a contractor, I would have moved the fence, not 9, but 8 over to that buffer, depending on neighbor's attitude. Yeah, Dividend Dave. Hello, everyone. Hello, Dividend Dave. All-nighter hider. I went back and graduated high school just for peace of mind and wrapping up loose ends. I couldn't fit in the seats, so that was not going to happen for me. Let's see. Chester Williams, 2 Millennial Mike. I reneged on the Millennial Mike already. Good afternoon, and thank you for taking the time to do this. Since I'm more familiar with Matt and Dion, I wanted to address them first. No disrespect. Oh yeah, he didn't take it as disrespectful.
No, I did. I'm quitting this live stream in 10 minutes.
Bye.
For a completely unrelated purpose, actually.
But there is an eject button,
There is an eject button. Are you sharing what you're going for? Or are you going to keep that to yourself? Okay.
Sure. Yeah. Dion over here had an article written about him by Business Insider. So did Matt. Matt had 2, I think. And then, 4. My bad. I apologize.
Dion had 4 too, I think.
You chested him already.
It was a slow news week.
These individuals have had Business Insider interview them. And so Dion sent an introduction email that said that, my story might be something that was interesting. And so I'm doing an interview with Business Insider at 11 a.m. this morning. So I'll be taking off to do that, but I will rejoin if the live stream is still going.
We'll probably still be going. I mean, depending on how much alien vodka and how much is left in Dion's flask.
Yeah.
So the alien vodka's over there. I did not know that my daughter filled this with tequila. Which I'm not a fan. So if it looks like my water's a bit stiff today.
That's awesome. Robert Farinelli. Yeah, as a college grad in software, I should have been an electrician or a plumber, would be better off right now. Yeah, that's tough. I mean, I know that working in tech for 25 years, I know that most global organizations choose to have a lot of their a lot of their operations offshore when it comes to development. And I can tell you, I've seen the cost of those teams, and those folks there work full time for between $8,000 and $12,000 a year US. And that's the math. It's like in the US, somebody might cost 120, and there they cost 8 to 12. So you can get between 10 and 15 people doing that same job. And so the idea is having a really good lead program and then watching what they're doing and managing that. And you can get more output, obviously, than a single person in the States.
So the comment was, should have took a trade instead of school.
Yep.
And my kids hate it when I talk about them, but this is a long live stream and none of them have the attention span for this. So they're not watching. But my son went to college, got a business information systems management degree, went to PayPal, was running a division, and could barely pay his student loan debt with his other bills. So my graduation present was I put him through our CDL school. He got a truck driving job, doubled his income from PayPal, paid off all his student loans. Now he's looking for his first duplex, and the job can be either driving, which would make 6 figures plus, or use his degree, which would make 60 to 80, and he could choose. So eliminating the student debt was a huge part of the equation.
Oh yeah, for sure. All-nighter hider. Cash flow is a fun game. My kids at 9 and 14 enjoy playing it. Very cool. Samuel, my 4-year-old's actually negotiating his very first real estate transaction.
Wow. How so?
I took a video of him and I said, here's what you need to say into the camera. He goes, okay, Dad. I said, you need to say into the camera, if my daddy can't get it at that price, I can't have any more toys.
Oh, man.
And I recorded that and I sent that to the seller.
Oh, that's a ruthless exploitative.
She wrote back, she goes, that's playing dirty. And I was like, I'm not above that. I've proven I am not above that. I said, still want to do a transaction with you, but my son really would like to still be able to get toys.
Oh.
Nicole Don. Hello, gentlemen, and everyone else. I got a fourplex back in 1989 FHA. Just took over sub 2, far less than 75K, and it sold a few years later. It just recently resold for almost 400K. Wish I hadn't sold. Dion, you've not sold anything yet, right?
No, because I've heard so many investors say,
yeah.
wish I hadn't sold. The only time I've heard it make sense is, of course, 1031 to something that ends up being better. Or like you and Zuber have eliminated a headache. This one property just has too much turnover, too many issues. It's not worth the time. Totally get it. No, I don't want to look back and go, I wish I hadn't sold. So I haven't sold anything.
Yeah. Millennial Mike, you have not sold anything yet, right?
No, and for literally the exact same reason. I mean, the amount of investors that I've interviewed and spoken with on my journey to try to glean information off of them, and how many times I've heard, God, I wish I hadn't sold that property. It's double what it was, over and over and over again. So in my opinion, dude, hold on to these things as long as you can. If you got to take out a home equity line of credit or a cash out refinance, sure. But dude, just keep it in your pocket if you can.
Yeah, largely speaking, that's true. I mean, I think everything that I've ever sold where we had some sort of a revenue event, we've taken that money and reinvested it into other property. So the key was, it was always the evaluation of, I will sell this property because I'm going to trade up in asset, not take that money and do something else with it. So I think that that's really the key. So Don, you might have reinvested that. If you did, that's a great thing. So REI Stoners, can you guys talk about surveying the property when you make your first purchase? Do I call City Hall? Does the title company take care of this? Who pays? Dion?
Before you answer the question,
Yeah.
REI Stoners, thank you so much for the present. My daughters are very excited about Daddy-Daughter Day, where we get to go and try out what you gave me. Now that I don't have a CDL job and things are legal in Washington. It's edibles. I don't smoke anything.
I was just gonna say, I know it's.
But here's what's great. There's a rule in Washington, and it's not like I'm saying this with somebody in the room who is law enforcement, but you can only sell things in Washington State that have a 10, whatever the rating is, THC in it. This has a 50. So I'm looking forward to the videos that come out that day. But thank you. Now, Matt, sorry, go back to answering his question.
No, let's talk more about that. So I think from a surveying perspective, here's what you want to do. A survey is extra money. A survey is money that you have to spend for a surveyor. What you will get is you will get town maps. So yes, I would absolutely always 100% of the time go down to the town and understand what that looks like. If you're ever planning on doing any work on the property, adding an ADU, doing a major addition, anything like that, you're going to need to have it surveyed in order to do that, even if they have those things there, because a surveyor will need that data in order to make his plan proposal to the planning board of any work that they then want to do. So the title company does not take care of that. It has nothing to do with the title company. It absolutely is. Go to City Hall. It is something that you can get free of charge. So nothing that you have to pay for. G Glover, hello guys. I've been researching midterm rental for traveling nurses, corporate, I think is what that meant to say, and insurance housing. Do you guys have any experience or insight? I've done it. Dion, I think you've done it too, right? Have you done?
So I haven't done traveling nurses. My sister is a traveling
Is
nurse,
one.
and she shared with me a website, which I can put in the chat if people want it,
Yep.
that shares what they pay in the location based on the time of year, because this was the education for me from my sister. Thank you, Allie. Who doesn't watch our content, but actually she might. She just bought her first investment property. So she might.
All right. Good job.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Good job.
They pay based on how much it sucks to be there.
Yeah.
So in the summer, they'll pay you more to be in Florida.
Yep.
In the winter, they'll pay you more to be in Ohio. Right? They don't pay you more in the winter to be in Hawaii.
No.
Right. So this website shares time of year, location, what they'll pay. And the reason she told me was her landlord only did traveling nurses and was charging like $1,500 a month when the stipend there was $2,700 a month. And had a landlord known that, she would have paid more. She never told him, right? But as an investor, I'm sharing that with other investors so that you can make them more informed. They don't want to pay what they're being compensated, but they'll pay closer to it than what area average rent is.
Sure. I did traveling nurses for a while. I didn't love it. It was, but I think that that's more of a reflection on the organization that was hiring them and how they managed those contracts. They didn't want to go under lease. It was the traveling nurses that did, and it was always changing companies. Like I did it for about 18 months, and I think they changed the company that they do traveling nurses with 4 times. It was ridiculous. And so it was like, and you usually have to do furnished. There's usually a lot more things that you have to do along those lines. And so for me, I wasn't getting that much of a premium over what I already get for the unit. So for me, it made sense to just keep it units, but who knows? Like I said, I think that was more indicative of the hospital that was running those contracts than it was necessarily that doing that vertical. Mike, you ever done any of those traveling?
I mean, I've dated some traveling nurses, but I've never done short-term rentals or anything like that. Coincidentally, though, in my house hack, I actually have 2 nurses that live next door, and they rent for me, but they've been here for 2 years, and yeah, not short-term. But fellas, I'm gonna have to leave this conversation for that Business Insider article. I will see you guys in just a little bit.
See you later, Mike. We'll save any questions for you.
Sounds good.
Now that Mike's gone, we can talk about him.
No, I've seen him shoot. I'm not saying nothing.
I know it's a weird live stream that I'm the worst shot on there, but I know factually I'm the worst shot on here. Let's see. Chester Williams. Oh no, it's for Mike. We'll wait. We'll do that one back. Robert, question for Matt. I heard in a previous video or live stream something of the effect of NH that you can collect partial payment during an eviction and not reset the process. Can you confirm this is true? So I would confirm it with your attorney, but my understanding is, and my practice has been correct. We can actually receive let's say the rent's $1,000 and somebody pays $500. that does not start our process all over again. If we send them a note back saying, thank you for the $500 payments towards your outstanding balance on rent. Please note, this does not stop the eviction process unless it is paid in full with all fees associated.
One caveat, and I
Yes.
do this because I receive rents through Apple Pay, Cash App, Venmo, PayPal,
Yep.
ACH, a check from this one super sweet old lady, and I'll take cash from this one guy that gives me 20s covered in glitter. It's weird. But if you take a partial payment, it does reset the eviction timeline if you accept the money. So if you receive a Venmo payment, you put that into an account that is like an escrow account of your own. You don't have to go to a title company. You just put into an account, send back a message saying, thank you for your $7 or whatever partial payment you made. That is being held in an account until you're paid in full. If the eviction goes through, then this will be put towards those the settlement from the eviction. So it's not like you've received the money, you've taken it and you're holding it somewhere. So don't commingle the funds, don't put it in the same account, transfer it to that one account where you would hold partial payments. I haven't had to do that, but that's how I would handle it.
New Hampshire is easier. We don't have to do that.
And this was just based on my eviction attorney that I have on retainer saying, here's how you handle it.
100%. Yeah, every state's different, 100% different. Always consult your attorney. We've gone through that process. We've received partial payments. We just received a partial payment this last week. That was exactly the note that we left them and gave them. So yeah, but check your local laws. But in New Hampshire, that's what I've done with my tenants in the past with no ramifications. Joe Gentili, what's up? What's up, Joe? How you doing, my man? How's work today? I hope you're super busy. Still trying to find an awesome truck. Elise, fire me, please. Still love that name. Elise, good afternoon. Good to have you here. Anna K, just noticed this going live. Jumped on. Anna, good to have you. I know. Deanna and I were like, what are we going to do with Mike gone? We're like, let's just do another live event. Let's invite Millennial Mike. He'll be fun. He'll want to jump on with us. Dividend Dave, the real estate deals, what real estate deals do you guys have on the horizon? Dion, you first.
Less than you, probably. I'm looking at deals. And so whether we're in an up market, down market, high interest rate, low interest rate, the chronology is the same for me.
Yeah.
Continue to save, continue to work on credit score, watch deals, watch rents, watch rates, look for yield.
Mhm.
So I took some time off investing to help friends buy. I'm set up now to buy my next one. It'll be my first one that I do post W-2 job. But I've talked with my lenders. Consistent cash flow for X number of years qualifies me for not a lot, like 700,000 if I want to buy a house, which I'm not going to buy a house. But they said no limit again if I buy a small multifamily, because I'll take 75% of the rents on the small multifamily factored in. So nothing's really changed losing the W-2. I don't recommend doing that until you have several consistent years
Yes.
of cash flow from rentals, even though I'm carrying forward a loss every year. This year it was $8,900 carried forward to next year as a loss because lenders aren't stupid. That's not true. But lenders take out depreciation out of the equation to where it then shows what your actual cash flow was, even though it's a paper loss. I don't think I made any offers this week, but we were flooded with inventory. Like I've got to actually sit down, schedule the 20 minutes every day to go through and filter. I know 80-90% of them are going to be terrible deals, but to find a 10 to 20% that I look at, that's going to take time, which I've been goofing off too much. Don't compare my year 10 to year 1. You should do that every day.
True.
I need to get back into every day until I get the next deal. I need to put the money to work. There's a bunch of money sitting in an account that's not paying me monthly. That's frustrating.
It is like $8.
No, like $1, if that. Yeah. No, it's not even that. That would be hundreds a year. Like it's $15 every 6 months. Like it's ridiculous.
Oh dear God. Yeah, that's brutal. I've got the one deal that we're under contract on, which is a very unique property. It's a single family home, 3-bedroom, 1 bath, a mobile home on the same lot, and then a outbuilding that was actually a really interesting story. I'm really interested to film there after we close. This building, a builder who was a big fan of Playboy saw this building in Playboy, and he built that building in his backyard. It's like
That's
this
funny. I
weird,
just
like,
looked at a
Swiss
property
chalet.
like that.
Really?
Yeah, so not Playboy, but and I don't want to give it away because the deal's currently under contract. But there was a movie set
Okay.
in like the 20s,
Okay.
and the guy who made the movie set made a place with 20 units here in Washington that I went and looked at. But it takes more active hands-on to run it, and I'm not looking to do that. So I passed it on to Cody and Christian of Cody and Christian Multifamily, and they're in negotiations.
Awesome.
But the place is set up like the movie set. Like it's I'm hoping to get to be able to share the info once they close on the deal, because it's really cool. Same thing.
Very cool. Yeah, it's just a weird deal, but yeah, we'd love to do that. I mean, the numbers are, Dion, you know, when you get like a weird deal that has like a weird funky like number of buildings on it, but they're rentable. The biggest thing was this has the lift and the car garage I've wanted forever. So I can bring my truck in, I can put it up on the lift, I can get underneath it, I can do the things I need to do when I get enthusiastic during a snowstorm. Lets me do some of the fun things and fix some of the things I know that I'll be breaking. Let's see. So that's what we have on the horizon. Chester Williams, next question for everyone. With respect to the number of units and or properties you have, at what point did the income snowball kick in? Dion?
For me, it was, so the unit count happened at 6 years, but I focused and paid off one of the properties because at that point in time, we were allowed to have 4 mortgages. I had 4 mortgages with 7 units. It was a single family, 3 duplexes. That's when I realized the income snowball was my properties were kicking off more income than I was making when I was a police officer. Mm-hmm. Not a lot, but more, to where I knew I could never have to work again. But the snowball effect is continuing to work while there's more money coming in than it costs you to live. So everything just compounds. I didn't do the recycle capital with HELOC or cash out refinance or sale in 1031. I recycled cash flow. I worked, so 6 years, income snowball kicks in, 8 years, financial independence happened, 12 years, financial freedom. Literally, I don't think I'll ever look at a price tag again. Not on like 5 Lamborghinis or whatever, but I just went and, you saw, I swapped my truck out and I didn't even look at the price. I was just like, that property pays for this. I'm not even gonna think about it, buy the truck I want with all the extras I want. So that was the chronology. 6 years income snowball, financial independence was 2 years later. Continue to invest the money and avoid life creep. It was at that 8 years that I started having the life creep, got the Corvette, started taking the trips, first vacation I've ever had. I took a 1-month vacation to Colombia as soon as I hit that financial independence, celebrate the wins along the way. Yeah. How about you, Matt?
I mean, honestly, I probably haven't had to work for close to a decade, probably 6, well, maybe, yeah, 2022. Yeah, probably 7, 8 years. I probably haven't had to work. But was so young. We didn't have a family yet. It was like, could still fill the day with it. It's a lot easier to buy with a W-2. Things have gotten easier now with seller-based financing and creative financing and DSCR loans. None of that stuff really was mainstream at all back then. So, saying to somebody, hey, so would you carry the mortgage for me? What do I look like? Bank of America? Like that, people were not interested in carrying debt or deferring taxes or delaying taxes or eliminating them. So yeah, so I'd probably say it was probably, since I've been doing this for 21 years, it was probably year 13 or probably year 10. Probably year 10 that we could have stopped, but it wouldn't have been a great lifestyle. Like now we can do whatever we want. We can never look at a price tag. We can send our kids to whatever school they want to go to. Now it's just what do we want to do kind of thing. So good question. Josh Engen, love the midday live stream. Thanks, Josh. We love it too. It's a good time. Nicholas Massey, when leveraging your equity, do you recommend 70% loan to value or 50% loan to value when scaling for more rentals? My portfolio is 70.
I like the ending of that sentence.
Yes.
When scaling more rentals. Yep. So in growth mode, like you and Zuber are, and a lot of investors are, 70% is perfect. I think you have enough equity position to be able to handle problems or sell without having to write a check.
Mhm.
You are gaining appreciation on a large enough multiplier of what you're investing. It's like that was my goal, was 70%.
Mhm.
When not looking for rentals, in my position where I don't actually care to add more, I probably will because the cash keeps piling up. I like 50% LTV. I could literally handle a more than 50% rent decrease and not have to be out of pocket, still have my life covered, expenses covered, repairs and maintenance covered. So there's a chronology to your investing. In growth mode, I recommend 70%, not more. And in retirement, I recommend 50%, not less.
Yeah, I agree with that because you want still productive capital. Yep, still productive capital. I agree with that. Chester Williams, that's awesome. Millennial Mike, we'll congratulate him when he comes back. BI articles, they do a great job. They do a great job. Kathleen has been the one that's interviewed all of us. She does a really great job. I really like working with her. She's, I mean, honestly, after reading the drafts, when I see them, I don't think I might have had to correct one minor thing, but she does a great job. She takes great notes, great listener, really gets the point across. So it's great to work with her.
The really cool thing with Business Insider, and if he's doing his interview today, it means he's been through this.
Yes.
They are forensic.
Holy crap.
It's like getting a loan. It was like, prove this,
worse.
show me dates, show me records that weren't
Yeah.
yours coming from the source.
Yeah.
They're very careful about making sure they never do an article and have to do a retraction.
We literally jumped online and I walked them through my bank account.
We did the same thing, bank account. I had to show, because I received rent payments in so many different forms.
Sure.
Like it wasn't just random cash going into my bank didn't work because it was from my accounts. I had to go, here's the Venmo account, here's the PayPal account, here's that.
Yep. I do the same thing times 121 units or 100, and I think 10 at the time. It was a lot. Honestly, that took more time than the interview for the article.
Oh yeah, that way more time. The interview was a couple hours, if that,
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was lengthy. Nicholas Massey, when you buy an empty duplex, do you put utilities in your name for a few days, weeks until it takes to fill the vacancy and cancel them when filled? So Dan, do you want to handle that one first? I don't mind.
Sure. You can probably have a better answer with more experience, but here's what happens when you buy a property. We should probably do a video on. You've closed on a property, now what? The first thing you do is put all utilities in your name. You take what's called a landlord, an account, so that the tenant can put it in their name. But if the tenant ever moves out, it instantly goes back into your name, so that you want power there so you don't have freezes. You want power there so contractors and handymen can actually do things between tenant flips. So you assume what's called a landlord account. Whenever it goes into the tenant's name, you don't get billed. Actually had a like $18 bill show up the other day because I had a landlord account for like 2 days or 7 days or something, because it went into my name until the next tenant put it in their name. So that's how I do that.
Yeah. So it depends on your utility. I would call the utility and ask them what their process is and ask them. That's gone a long way for me. We have one where when the tenant calls in and says, my lease is over, we're doing this, it defaults into our name. So we don't even have to worry about it. There's another one where we do have to worry about it. We have to make sure, because in the wintertime, we can have somebody leave under lease in the wintertime. We do not want them canceled. We don't want them to cancel that because there can be a mistake and you can go without heat for a day or two. So really just play it right. Call the utilities, ask them what their process is, because you'll find that it differs per utility, per state, or per county and per state, based on what the provisions are in laws and rules in that area. With it being utility, it usually in the wintertime with certain temps, it has to be stay on and all this other stuff, but make sure you don't get a surprise bill in the mail, or make sure we've actually had to clean up a credit issue because they put it in our name, but they sent it to the address and we never got the bill. And so managing the number of properties that we did, we're not calling them up going, are there any bills that you haven't sent us? And here's all the addresses. That's what happened. So we had to go through it. We said, look at all of our accounts. It wasn't the person that made the adjustment in the system didn't do it properly, because we have all of our other accounts with you guys where the PO box is the same everywhere. This one they sent back to the property. We didn't get it. We obviously pay our bills. So that's one of the things that I would recommend is just contact them, find out how you do it or how they do it. Rankin Projects, just saying hello. What's the motivation you use to power through barriers? Currently in year 2, 5 properties, 7 doors. That's phenomenal. And looking like an eviction on horizon, part of the business. Do tenants ever just wear you down?
So I'll go first if you like.
Sure.
So my first tenant was a friend, didn't have a lease, leased on a handshake, was a nightmare, wore me down. I tried to quit, tried to give the house away. Luckily, I was underwater, upside down on the mortgage, couldn't give it away. Ends up being one of my best rentals now. I've been fairly lucky with good screening processes since then. The motivation is what I get to do now. Like the first 5 years,
Yes.
sucks. It's slow. An eviction eats into your cash flow. It can take your reserves. It's frustrating. Murphy's fourth corollary kicks in. Are you familiar with that? Yep. So if anything can go wrong, it will. But if any sequence of events can go wrong, they will, and in the worst possible order. So I have friends who have larger portfolios, and I've seen them. They're financially free. They're retired. They don't have to work 50 hours a week. They don't work at all. But everything that's going to happen is going to happen on that day.
Yeah.
And come from every different direction. And so your handymen are tasked, contractors are busy, so you're handling things. So the larger the portfolio, if you don't have property management, I think can wear you down. But focus on that financial freedom and think of everybody who says, I don't want to deal with tenants, toilets, or termites because I don't want to call at 10 o'clock at night, but they're working 50 to 60 hours a week. No thanks.
Yeah.
Like for a while, yes.
Sure.
But that I've pulled the trigger and not going to do it anymore is forever.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so tenants do wear you down. Exactly what Dion said is 100% true. First 4 or 5 years suck. As you continue to grow, the biggest challenge that you have is when you get into your groove and things are going great and you have a process for everything. When you onboard properties with other people's tenants, that can be a challenge. That's been our biggest frustration this last year is the tenants don't know how to properly interact. They're disrespectful, they're difficult to deal with, and we fix everything when it needs fixing. And we, just because they call us doesn't mean I can get somebody out there within an hour to take care of their need. And largely it's usually not that difficult. To Dion's point of everything happening at once. Yesterday, I got a list on 5 properties of things that need addressing in the next week from my insurance company. Within an hour of that, I got an emergency email from Section 8 saying I have 3 24-hour fail items at the property that was just inspected. What was very interesting for my experience is that all 3 of those things were existing when the property was inspected last year. Little bit making me mental. I get that it's the process, but I kind of, when it's good, right? Check the box. When I say a unit's good, it's good. All 3 of these items existed last year. And to then say 24-hour notice, to me seems a little bit over the top.
Are all of your units in one county?
So what's really interesting is this is actually, we're having the same issue, which is a brandy new inspector who's just being completely over the top compared to the other inspector that's in the area. They are in the same county. It is a different town. And this town is actually the really good one. They're actually the really good one.
That would be my question, because I invest in 2 counties.
Yeah, one of them.
And there's one I will not touch their Section 8 program.
Pierce?
They're just Pierce County, not to name them, but Pierce County sucks. And Thurston County, I love it. They're great. I would do more units there. They work with you. They're communicative. The inspector came and found that behind a refrigerator there wasn't an electric plate, which is can't have that.
Yeah.
She says, I have some in my truck. I'll be right back. Like that helpful compared to no answer, rude, dismissive, like sends all the emails of, hey, we really need units and it really helps the community.
Exactly.
But then they suck. Right.
Right. Yeah. And again, I have one town that's like that. I won't do any more with them, period. This one's becoming like that. And it's really discouraging because I want to help the problem. But I told them, I said, you need to pitch me on what's in this for me. Like, what's in it for me? 20% less rent. You only reporting what I've done wrong, but it's stuff that was there in the last 3 years. I didn't change any of those things. Your new inspectors being extra vigilant. That's fine. Great for you. But then he writes nothing about how there's balls of cat hair and puke stains on the floor. It's got to cut both ways. I am more than happy to repair those items that now the new inspector says are a 24-hour issue for some reason, which is crap. But I expect something else on their report too, holding the tenant accountable to some level, way, shape, or form, saying you need to keep a cleaner unit, especially because your rent's being 100% paid for, and you don't have employment. You can sit here and your place should be immaculate. So that's, again, admittedly, I'm struggling through this process because it's got to cut both ways. It can't be right now. The analytics, the factual numbers show that we are 8 times more likely to get a call from a tenant on assistance than not on assistance. 8 times more likely. So I'm waiting for the data to tell me the story so I can then go back to them and say this, but we want to continue to put more and more units into that system. We know that they're short 200 units, but paying 20% or 30% under market and not having the inspection be, bi-directional, helping both, I'm more than happy to fix, but I want to know if there's a problem. And cleanliness to me is a problem. If the person's living in squalor in the unit, you should be reporting that too.
Yeah, the rent payment was a part of mine too. The one housing authority responded to the binder strategy.
Yeah.
Fixed the rents based on comps I showed them. The other one wouldn't even communicate about it. Like,
I got yelled at when I talked about my credit score being 680. I was told that's ridiculous.
Mine's 700 and my Section 8 tenants I have one with an 831, other one with like a 760, I think. But yeah, fixed income. If it's their mindset, then they're looking for people with problems, right?
So I cited you. I actually said, I'm talking to other landlords. This is what it is. So I want to make sure to bring that up just because, again, I'm struggling with it. I think we'll eventually get the handle on it. It's just not going well for me. So know that even doing this for over 20 years, knowing what I'm doing, I still have frustrations. I still have things that I'm learning that I got to get past, I got to figure out. So keep the faith, Rankin. It's coming together for you, and it's an investment. And if at the end of the day, I find that there's just no way that I can make this work, then we just have to figure out how we work with housing on that. How can we make this work? We got to find a way to make it work. Dividend Dave, I can't wait to get my first Gary, Indiana home.
Dividend Dave lives here in Washington, about 3 hours north of me, has driven down to a couple of meetups. So that's awesome.
Very cool.
He purchased his first duplex and he told me where, but my memory says Louisiana. And I think he's house hacking.
Cool.
And then he's going to start looking at investing in different markets too. So he's getting a great start.
Good for you. That's awesome. REI Stoner says, Dion, you're very welcome. Nicholas Massey, when you move to a new house hacking, Nicholas, let me just tell you too, I love that you're asking these questions. You're clearly doing the work, my friend. And that's awesome. I love it. I see you in all of our live streams. You're doing the work. So congratulations. Good on you. You're far more likely to make fewer mistakes and make better decisions by continuing to educate yourself. So well done for you. When you move to a new house hacking property every year or other year, how have you been handling mail? PO box and forward. Yeah. So always PO box, period. The luxury of receiving things at our house is only packages. Everything goes to the PO box 100% of the time. It's the best expense you could ever have. Tenants don't know where I live. So if they want to get tough one day and just show up, they can't do that. They could show up at my PO box and wait for me. But they'll be sadly disappointed because we usually go when the post office is closed. So that's that. But yeah, PO box, we use that for everything. The forwarding in the world today with USPS, forwarding is a nightmare. Don't do it. We've literally gotten things 5 weeks after. 5 weeks after. It can be a real problem. Yep, worth flasking over. Nikodon, selling my 4 single family home to reinvest into small multifamilies. I took the money from my 4-plex I sold to buy a Porsche. I was only 25. Hey, I still like the purchase. G Glover, please drop the website. Oh, the website for the yeah. Can you do that?
Yep.
Yeah,
yeah, I can because it's Zoom. No,
No, you can't. All right.
I can't
Yes, we
because
will
it's
drop it.
on, I'll try.
We will, and if not,
I'll put it in the comment after,
yeah. Well, you can do it
if
from
I
your
can.
phone. You can
Yeah.
put it in from your phone.
but it's a website. So that's why I'm wondering if it'll let
Oh,
me.
yeah. That'll get blocked anyway. Yeah.
You don't trust me enough to make me a moderator.
Should I?
No, obviously not.
Exactly. Yeah, I'll figure out how to do that on the participants. Here we go. Nope. I'm not going to do it that way. All right. So
Post it and then I'll see if it goes.
Yeah. See if it goes, and if not, I'll enter it in.
Okay.
Let's see. Thanks for your wonderful time in advance. You're welcome. When doing your first application for landlord with Section 8, how long does that process take to be approved and also collect first tenant rent income? Usually a few weeks. 2-3 weeks, start to finish. That's what my experience has been. Dion, you?
About that, and the one trick to that I've used is when they inspect, they're going to give you a list of things. These need to be fixed. You know, that window's sticky, that light doesn't work, whatever it is. Ask the inspector if you can send a video or a picture of the repair being made so they don't have to schedule a second time to come and say all of your items have been fixed. That can eliminate a couple of weeks out of there.
I'm entering in the website as we speak.
There.
Freaking long enough website. Holy crap. All right, there you go. Full on. Done. Let's see. Millennial Mike, you studs. Back at Mike. Dividend Dave, congrats to Mike on the BI interview. Yes, indeed. Joe Gentili, how much do you set aside for CapEx, vacancy, etc.? Dion, you're 15%, right?
Yeah, so I can give a quick breakdown.
Yep.
It's scaled with the size of the portfolio as far as how much I set aside and keep in reserves. When I'm buying an asset, I always figure the numbers as if it was going to be the only asset and I was going to have it forever. So I set aside 5% for vacancy, even though I've never had one. That helps me contribute money for when I do have a tenant turn, even though there's no vacancy, flooring, paint, minor repairs, whatever's going to come up, that contributes towards that. But CapEx, I set aside 10%, and that's for roof, water heater, things that are going to come up in the future that have a large expense. So 15% from the gross rents is factored as what I set aside to figure out if my cash flow is going to be good enough to pursue the deal. When I had 7 or less units, I kept 10,000 in reserves. So if my reserves were ever under 10,000, 15% of gross rents would go to fill that up. Once I had more than 7 units, I figured more than one thing can go wrong at a time. So I raised it to 30 while I was still working. So at 16 units, I had 30,000 in an account because I had a good W-2 job. Since I've retired and I no longer work, don't have the W-2 coming in, I've increased reserves to 50,000 so that I sleep. It's a SWAN, sleep well at night account. Can handle issues when they come up. When the reserve account is full, when it was at 10, 30, or now 50,000, the 15% of gross rents that would go into that account if it was low doesn't become cash flow for me because I don't want to live on or need that money. It becomes 15% that goes into the investing fund so that my next investment might happen sooner. But if it drops and that 15% of gross rents has to fill that account, it has absolutely no impact on me at all, doesn't touch my cash flow. And that's my breakdown on how I do reserves and what you set aside.
So I changed my model recently because I have the $50,000 slush fund, which is there for any sort of CapEx that would come up that we need to take care of. Usually now we just actually take care of it out of cash flow. But in order to figure into the deal, I've actually looked at what we spent the previous year in maintenance across our entire portfolio. And then I look at what the percentage of that is to the number of units that we have. And then now I count that number. It's really small. It's still really small.
I should probably do that. I've never come close to spending 15, and
It's
issues
dead
have
money. Yeah,
always come out of cash flow. The reserve is there, so I could sleep well at night, but I've never had to go, okay, there's not enough cash flow. Let me use money to do that. The only time that came close is when I made a purchase.
Right.
And I used my reserves for the purchase and had to use a retirement account. as my reserve for the lender to satisfy them. But no, I should probably figure that out. I just use 15, nice round number, makes sense.
Like the bank still uses it on mine when I do a deal with them, but I laugh at them every time. And I just say, can you show me in any of the reports I've ever given you where I've had a vacancy? And they're like, no. And I was like, okay, show me any property, any year that I hit a 10% number when it came to CapEx. It just doesn't happen. Because a lot of times I'll preempt it. Like I'll buy the value add stuff because I'll do the roof when I buy it. Or I'll set aside the 10 grand right then. And it's like, listen, if it doesn't leak this year, cool, we'll replace it after the winter time, that type of thing. So yeah, for me, it's just, and that number, the challenging thing with even carrying that number is it's still so infinitesimally small. Like across whatever it was, like 100, was it 100 units last year? Yeah, like right around 100 units last year. We spent right on actual maintenance. We spent maybe $150,000. $180,000, whatever that number was, but we were doing some, capital improvement stuff, right? And so when you look at it, it was like basically $1,500 a unit, or 1,200. When it was all said and done, it was like about $100 a month. And on most of our properties, that's just, it's nothing.
So it's a good, safe, conservative number. I think the 10 and the 15% when you're starting out in those first few years. After you've been investing and the income snowball kicks in, we probably only know this because we're trying to share it with new investors.
Sure.
And the lender asks. Like you said, almost every issue that's ever come up, cash flow handles it. So when you're starting out, you might not have that.
Absolutely.
And that's where it really matters. But once you have 4 or 5 properties, cash flow from that, if you don't have a YouTube channel and you're not trying to educate people on the basics, you'll probably never think about it.
Yes. Yep. It is one of those things. It's in my spreadsheet every single time I talk to the bank on any deal. And I was just like, do you have a fee for, what else do you have fees for? Because they really build it out. And they're like, yeah, this deal's pretty good. It's about 12%. I go, it's 12% after I completely annihilate and make all of these crazy assumptions. Sure, fine. It's a 12% deal. You happy? And it's not. It's nowhere near that. And I always remind them at the annual review, I always remind them, you guys had this tabbed at 12%. I made 26. FYI. So if you guys are coming up with 12, usually you should, whatever number you come up with, double it, because that's usually what the real number is.
Yeah, I try not to say that very often. I always say I'm shooting for this 10% return, but anytime I've looked back into an internal rate of return, I'm like, I'm so glad I bought that.
Exactly.
I just can't imagine. I can't get my head around the cash flow growth, the net worth growth, the financial stability that comes from time in the market. It's people say it all the time, beats timing the market. But once you have it and it happens to you, in my opinion, it's better than winning the lottery.
I agree.
Because there wasn't luck involved.
Nope.
These are the actions I took, and this is what made it to where I can live the life of somebody who won a lottery, never work again, and do anything I want. That's what we're trying to do, sometimes kicking and screaming, drag people along to the same point.
Sure. Yeah, totally agree. Robert Farinelli, advice for sealing up a bulkhead door. There is a gap on the bottom, but spray foam around all over siders. It's letting bugs in, weather stripping or something else. Yeah, you can use, you get a bunch of options. If it's metal, there's like metal patch out there that you can actually rub it together in your hands and then actually put the metal patch over, and it's a putty that then hardens like metal. You could do that. You can do weather stripping is pretty good too. So yeah, both of those are decent options. Do you have something?
Is there something I'm missing? What's a bulkhead door compared to? If you're in the Navy or the Marines, it's the wall, but
yeah,
it's just a door, right? Is it a special kind of door?
Yeah, it's a special kind of door. So it's a bulkhead. So here in the Northeast, it is a flat door that usually is at an angle like this, that actually, when you open it up, it gives you access to the basement stairs.
I'm going to have basement stairs. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, so it's usually like walk down basement stairs. However, it's metal. And so it's loud, it's clanky. They're like horribly designed. But they will let air in, the whole 9 yards. So what we do in the wintertime is we actually, from the inside, we put insulation on the inside of them to cut down on the airflow. A lot of times people in newer construction, they made a doorway where you can shut the door to the bulkhead because they're just so porous for air.
Cool.
You can frame in a door at the bottom of those stairs that then enjoy getting appliances in and out of that if you're bringing like washer and dryer into the basement as an example. Josh Engen, do you look at or care about return on equity from the perspective of a rental that you buy as appreciated a lot in price but not much in rent?
I love a question that's going to get two different answers.
Go for it. You go first.
So this is a little bit of sarcasm. Please don't call it equity. Call it, I have the ability to create debt on an existing asset. When you pull out equity, HELOC, cash out refinance, doesn't matter. You reduce the cash flow of that property.
Mm-hmm.
If you have the ability to deploy that funds in another place and get a return that justifies the return on the new asset and the debt service on the existing asset, maybe go for it. But not, I think in my market, I'll get this return. I mean, you have a deal. You're confident you'll get your asking price met or better. And you're confident in your ability to, like I say, don't take out your 401k, don't take a loan against your 401k, don't take out the equity in your house on your first few deals. This is where we tend to make our biggest mistakes. You're putting at risk something that you're probably going to lose. Once you have your first couple of deals under your belt, you know how to find a tenant, find a lease, screen a tenant, manage a tenant, do maintenance, figure out your expenses, understand what your expected cash flow is actually going to be, not what you think it's going to be. Now it might make sense. I've never done it. I don't want to. And because I didn't, I was able to retire very comfortably in 12 years. If I did it, I'd have a much bigger portfolio. I'd probably have way more cash flow in 10 years, but I wouldn't have been able to retire now as comfortably as I am. So it depends on what your goals are. That's my answer. And you've done it. So our opinions are very different.
Well, yeah. So, but to me, return on equity is really that's a nice to have. It's nice when it happens. It's fine. Generally speaking, I'll do it to recycle capital. But I don't ever make a decision based on ROE. Ever. Every asset that I buy, I'm buying an annuity. I'm buying a cash flowing asset that puts money in my pocket on the daily every single month. That's how it works. I never bought anything saying, well, in 10 years, now that's never been the leader. It's always been, am I buying in an area that I think has the opportunity for appreciation? Yes, I want to put it in a place where there's two towns where I'm from, and for 30 years, they've been the best kept secret. It's not a secret. They suck. They suck. Those two towns suck. They're awful. They don't get you big returns. Everybody's been investing there for 20, 30, 35 years. They suck. They're not that much better than they were. They're a third what the other neighboring towns have done. They've been bad towns. I won't say who they are. But for me, the deal is never about return on equity. It is always about cash flow. What does it do now? And then anything else is a bonus. Doing the big cash out refis, 23 properties in the last 12 months. Doing those big cash outs was great. Gave me a lot of capital, bought some, buying more. But the goal was never to buy those based on how much I thought that they would appreciate ever. Robert Farinelli, also recommendations for a dehumidifier to dehumidifying a basement, a dehumidifier. I would put a dehumidifier in there. And I would also put down plastic, and I would put down like 3 mil plastic on the floor and then 3/4 crushed stone on top of it. That will give you a good base, and that will cut the moisture down tremendously. Then you run a dehumidifier in there and see what you can get it to, and that should fix your problem.
Yeah, my inner Dexter says always have plastic, but redirect water sources so that your downspouts are making sure moisture is going away from your house. In Washington, we don't really have basements because those just become indoor pools here.
Yes.
But the dehumidifier is a perfect answer. We do have those here. We have them just for the regular rooms because this is a really moisture heavy state.
Yes.
So that'd be my first go-to. The plastic's a great idea though.
Yeah, the 3 mil plastic works. You can buy the clear stuff. The other thing that I would recommend too, along with what Dion said, which is obviously looking for downspouts and things like that, getting water away from your foundation. I think there are some other things that you can do depending on what you're dealing with. If it's a significant amount of water, get a hole dug in the foundation, put a sump pump in there, get something that can actually pump that thing out. If there's any level of volume there. So I would also look at that as well. Robert Falinelli, do you have dedicated outlets in rooms for AC units? I've had a bedroom on a 15 amp breaker that's tripping from a window AC and a ridiculous gaming PC VR setup. Dion.
So anytime I have the problem of a wall bank that's tripping because I have a ridiculous gaming VR setup and that's an issue. Don't do this yourself. This one I would have an electrician do. Reroute your pass-throughs. A lot of times it's wires that come in and they run into this plug and then they daisy chain 7 or 8 of them. And if you have the refrigerator and your dishwasher and it's going to trip. Originally, when things were built, people didn't expect there to be big PCs in the house. They didn't expect you to be running a VR system. They didn't expect you to have an AC unit plugged in. Like that wasn't a thing in the 70s or 80s when the places were built. So just have them remove one of the daisy chain steps to where you have more power going through the circuits without initiate. We had to do this the other day. We had to move a GFCI. It went to the GFCI, to the refrigerator, to the dishwasher, to the everything, right? So you want GFCI because you're near the sink. All we did, move the GFCI. So it went to the refrigerator, then to the GFCI. So the refrigerator wasn't near the water, didn't have to be there, it could trip the breaker.
Yep.
I would have an electrician look at how can you extend the power without making all of the power run off that one breaker.
Yeah, usually it's also pretty easy in most cases to put a line in, especially if you're first floor, like in New England, 90+% of homes have basements in New England. It's really easy to run a line off for an electrician to run a line off of the panel, put in a new breaker and bring you over a specific line that might be 15 amp. That's a dedicated line for your setup. If it's something that's on the second floor, that's an option too, because you can actually just feed it right up through the wall when it's one single line. So that's what's called creating a dedicated circuit. That's something that I've done in some of my homes that were older. They had upgrades, they had all been done. But to that end, we had one where we called the house the Big Bang Theory. And so because we called them the Big Bang Theory, it was because they had setups like the guys in Big Bang Theory. It was crazy. And so thankfully, we'd already redone the house. And when we did that, we put one line in each room that was a dedicated circuit. So you can run a server class machine off that and not worry about it. So certainly not too difficult to have done by an electrician. Might cost you a couple $100. Rob, Dion, what was your total dollars invested when you reach financial freedom?
So the one thing that's different between you and Zuber and me is your portfolios and your cash flows are larger, and we try not to share them because it's disheartening to the person starting out. Zuber says, get to 4. Life changes at 4.
Sure.
I'm still small enough to where I share actual real numbers, so don't sue me, bro. Of my own money from my W-2 and side hustles like overtime, and I have a couple, expert testimony providing information, and I do affiliate marketing, and all the money that I make that isn't from rentals, I've invested $320,000. From the rentals, I've invested about $300,000 in cash flow that I just as it came in, it went to the investing. So total of every down payment that I've ever made to purchase the properties that I have, to down payments, closing costs, immediate repairs, and everything was a little over $600,000. Cash flow profit this year, after setting aside for principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and repairs, maintenance, and vacancy, the 15% that I set aside, even though I don't need to because it's going into the investment account. But if I did, this year the profit will be, that's going to be more. I have to do the math again because I just had a tenant turnover and the rents went up significantly. That's awesome. Before this tenant turnover and the rent increase of 2 tenants, so I really have to do the math, was going to be $168,000. Now it's going to be more than that. So from my job and my income, $320,000 to generate $168,000 in profit. That might not be financial freedom for some people. You might need $500,000 a year. I need about 30. So at 168, fairly comfortable. Like I think after I retired, I look back and I go, why did I work for the
Yeah,
last
should
4
have done
years?
this faster.
Right?
I know that we'll be having that same conversation when I finally walk. I know we'll be having that same conversation with us. I definitely could have done this faster. But yeah, I think so. I won't share exact numbers, but yeah, suffice to say that yeah, it's I'll never look back. I'll never have to work again. I'll do whatever I want. And as far as like overall numbers, I don't think we have an original dollar left in any deal. I think we've been paid back for every dime that we put in.
So that's what I've thought is I have the paid off single family house.
Yep.
Valued at a little over 400,000. I could do a cash out refinance, pull out 75% of the equity, so 300,000, and basically have almost no money in any of my deals and still cash flow enough to be financially free. I don't want to reduce my cash flow.
Sure.
I don't have a use for that money. That's the beauty of it. The time in the market.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, time in the market. I mean, 21 years now for me. I'm 45. I've got another 20 years in the market at least. I'm interested to see what happens over the next 20 years. And then we'll make decisions on what we want to do. Do we want to have, kids buy into it, kids take it, whatever. I don't think they're going to get it for free.
The beautiful thing of it is I made it to 40 pretty much without ever having $1,000 in the bank.
Yeah.
And that's when I started saving for the first, it wasn't when I had the first duplex. It was 2 years later. So you could start this when you're 20, when you're 30, when you're 40, when you're 50, still worth it.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, even if I had to start the journey, even today, I would still start I would still start it today. I would absolutely still start it today. Amafid, I am looking at a property tonight. It is in a flood zone. Allstate quoted me $300 a month for flood insurance policy in addition to homeowners policy. What are your thoughts? So they might have quoted the 300, but they're getting that insurance quote from FEMA. They're just a pass through. They're not making anything on. So if it's a real flood policy, if you add the $300 in and it still gives you the yield or above the yield that you would expect, it's a great deal. There's nothing wrong with it. Just know that depending on what the building is, I believe the cap that they will pay to replace is $250,000. I'm pretty sure that's the building value of what they replace. So I looked at a property that a month ago, and the flood insurance on it was 13 grand. So it was over $1,000 a month. Well, that's basically saying that I'm going to buy the building all over again in 20 years. Or 18 years. So, but if you have something in that floodplain, you're not going to get a mortgage without flood insurance. We know some other folks that actually own 7-figure homes that don't have flood insurance because they just said, whatever, like we rolling the dice. Yeah, sure. But we're not going to pay that, $13,000-14,000 a year for a 100-year storm. We'll roll the dice. The last time we got one was, 35 years ago. We'll roll those dice and see what happens from there.
It's something to really be aware of.
But
sorry.
Go ahead. I don't love that strategy, but go ahead, Dion. Yeah.
It's something to be really aware of if you're investing in a state like Florida, where you can look at two properties right next to each other and neither one's in a flood zone.
Mm-hmm.
But the elevation of the house in Florida dictates whether you need flood insurance or not, based on some mortgage companies. And it can be $5,000 a year, $3,000 a year, $8,000 a year based on elevation of the property. So there was a certain period of time where houses were basically made like a house. Anything built in the last number of years, they elevate the property and then build the house. Like you can literally drive around Cape Coral, Florida and see houses that are 4 feet higher than all of their neighbors, the base level of the house. So those two properties next to each other, flood insurance is going to be very different.
Absolutely true. We see it 10 houses apart. One of them was 13,000. One of them was 4. And that was like literally just a few houses apart. So yeah, absolutely. Let's see. John, Texas, LJ. When you're renovating a property, what do you do for the property's exterior? Vinyl siding, windows, roof, whatever's needed. Sometimes it's just paint. Sometimes you just, scrape and paint it. Sometimes we do siding. Sometimes we do new windows. It depends. There's no There's no guarantee what we do. It's on an as needed basis. All-nighter hider. I'm still here, got busy hands. Good for you, all-nighter hider. Rankin projects. Awesome. Thank you guys. You are spot on. Eviction plus water main break. Oh, dude, I get it. During a rehab plus the 40-hour a week. Takes a toll, but yes, the ultimate goal where you guys now is motivational, work hard. Rankin, you're doing the job. I mean, to give you an indication too, I was doing this with an 80-hour a week job. Like, not to be a topper, but I was spending 80 hours a week in a job and doing this. So I know it seems like a lot. I get that it's overwhelming, but it's an investment. It really is an investment, not only of your money, but of your time. Dan, anything to add to that?
No, I think we covered that. That's great. I mean, yeah,
I agree. Allie Gaines. Hi, Allie. I don't think you've ever been here before, so I appreciate you asking a question. Agent owner wants interest only payments and a balloon in 5 years for owner carry deal. Any creative ideas to renegotiate terms for a better deal? 5-year balloon is too short and risky. Allie, just so you know, 95% of investors would love that deal. They would take a 5-year balloon payment deal. That's what they would do. It's usually interest only for 5 years. People ask for 10, you get 5, maybe you can get 7. But most investors want that deal. The mix there is, what are you paying for the property and what rate are you getting? That's really what the mixes are there. So the 5-year balloon, in all honesty, and Dan, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think every other investor is going to ask for 10. They might get 7, but they almost always end up with 5.
It's not a deal I would go for. I'm in the 5%. I wouldn't do a balloon on anything. I do fixed rate debt, or I don't go for the deal. And the person who has the ability to walk away has the power. So if this person has a bunch of people pursuing the deal, you don't have a lot of negotiating strength. But if you're the only person at the dance, it's kind of based on your position.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have the ability to funnel pretty much all of the cash flow into paying that down over the next 5 years? Or do you have the ability to, because what if prices flatline? What if interest rates are 15% in 5 years? Like, there's all kinds of things that can happen in those 5 years that make it not something I would do. If you have 121 units and this represents the cash flow from maybe 10 units, sure, it's worth a risk.
Sure.
If you have 16 and a thing like this puts your entire portfolio at risk, not a chance.
Yeah, it's very much a risk calculation. But again, Allie, just so you know, most real estate investors, this is the deal that they're going for. If it's a decent rate and a decent price, a 5 year is exactly what they're looking for. They believe over the course of the next 5 years, the one thing you do have to make sure of is that there is no prepayment penalty, because rates, if they go down to 3.1 again, you're going to want to get out of that thing fast and get into some 30-year fixed rate debt, especially if you're depending on what the valuation of the property is. So lots of opportunity there. Andrew P. Dion, when will you be dropping in on Lumberjack live stream unannounced? I think Matt needs a hug. He did it this last Sunday. Andrew P. You would know if you were there. Andrew. Jeez. So Andrew wasn't there, but yeah, Dion did come in. He did drop in on my live stream. It was fun. We had a lot of fun, and we recorded it, so it's on the channel. Nicholas Massey, thank you guys. Seriously, I closed on a duplex. Hey, Nicholas, congratulations. Closed on a duplex today. Very good. You both have made a huge difference and eased the fear of this process. Awesome. I signed up for Door Loop too. Very cool. Thank you, guys. You're welcome. Thank you guys again. You're very, very welcome. We've loved Door Loop so far. I'm interested to get Dion's review of Hemlane.
So I'm not going to have any complaints. It was a little like, it took 20 minutes longer than setting up on Zillow or apartments.com or anything. There was a couple more steps to go through, but one button, 30 platforms, property rented within 6 hours. Great qualified tenant, like
did you
6-figure income, 800 credit score. Like, it was everything I was looking for.
Was that lead source different than one you typically posted in?
Yes, because I had been using apartments.com.
Okay.
And it came through Trulia, which is Zillow, which Hemlane then touched on, which I would never put it on.
Yeah, that's what I'm always looking for in the products that I use is it value add? Like, I couldn't care less to posting to 30, because the 3 that I post to crush it for me for results.
Right. So yeah, I don't get your kind of response. Apartments.com, I would get 20 to 30 applicants within a weekend. So I mean, it was a significant
That's
amount,
great. Yeah.
but like 10% would qualify because
Yeah.
I strictly go for credit score and no
Sure.
evictions. That's
Sure.
what really matters. So,
Dividend Dave, I'm starting my investing journey in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Well, good. Congratulations. I love
that's
that.
not quite Louisiana, North Carolina.
It's not.
It's East Coast though. All that's just weird over there. Everything's 500 years old. Close to it.
No, 500 years.
A 30-year-old house here in Washington is old.
Oh, I know. But trust me, I get it. Someday I'll invest. Like Vegas isn't bad, right? Like most stuff was built in like the 80s or 90s, and then there's tons of new stuff. But yeah, people were like, "Oh, this is an old house." It's like, are you freaking serious? Like that's newer than anything I own in my portfolio. Robert Farinelli, Zuber says you should sell your rentals if they keep you up at night. Yep, my rentals have kept me up at night at points. Thoughts on the statement, as I think both of you didn't follow this in the past. Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, for me, I understand the platitude being made there. Yeah, I think long term, if that's how you constantly feel about it, then yeah, if it's constant anxiety, sure. But show me the thing that you're going to invest in that's not going to a certain level keep you up at night. Like if you're that kind of person about money and finances and income, that's what I think. So I think naturally some people are just more nervous about kind of what's going on. I know for me, they don't necessarily keep me up at night, but I'm a lighter sleeper being a landlord.
Two things.
Oh, yeah.
In the first 5 years, all of your properties keep you up at night.
Yeah.
Okay. You don't have, usually an investor doesn't have the track record of, I have insurance if things go wrong. You still have the fear of what if I can't fill a vacancy, instead of thinking how much might I have to lower the rent to fill a vacancy. So there's all this stress in those first 5 years. And the second thing is, don't compare year 10 or 20 to year 1. If you have a portfolio with 10, 15, 187 units, and one of them keeps you up at night, that's the one you get rid of.
Yeah.
But in those first 5 years, everything is stressful.
Yes, I concur. Let's see. Oh, I thought we were caught up and then we weren't. Moved.
Oh, we're good.
Yeah. Peter Schiff. We are ready to buy our first short-term rental in Southern California. Congratulations. Any advice, SFR or condo? You don't want my advice on Southern California investing.
My brother invests in Southern California, does just fine.
Yeah.
Stay out of LA County if possible. Their eviction moratorium is extended beyond what was determined unconstitutional federally. So no, but my brother invests in Kern County. So go up to Bakersfield, go up to Rosemont, Mojave, something just outside the county limits if possible, or south outside of LA County. I wouldn't do condo because that almost always says HOA, and HOA has a few problems. I'm actually making a video soon, and this is why it's going to sound scripted, because there's a script. It's not the monthly fee is not the problem. It's the random assessments.
Yes.
Lumberjack landlord got a $70,000 bill one time. And they said, "Hey, give us money."
Yeah.
Out of nowhere, right?
Yep.
That can happen. And then the third thing, and this is just based on my personal experience and nothing to reflect on you if you're on a homeowners association board, but homeowners association boards are full of jerks. And my experience is they're people with nothing better to do than mess with their neighbors. And you can have something like where if you're in the good old boy club, you can do whatever you want. But if you're me, you can't have a dumpster behind a fence when someone else has it out in front of their fence. And what if, and this is happening to a friend of mine, you invest in an HOA. You have a tenant in there for almost 5 years. Tenant moves out. HOA is only allowed to have 20% of their units as rentals. They weren't managed very well, and they're above 30% as rentals. He can't renew a rental unit because that tenant moved out. They're above the threshold. So he now has 2 options. Move in, well, 3 options. Move in, or sell it, or just pay the mortgage with no income. No, not in an HOA. So I would stay away from the condos. Short-term rentals, single-family house, if you can make it work, but you can do small multifamily and do short-term rentals too.
Yeah, short-term rentals not my game, so I don't really talk about it. But I have done HOAs and they suck, like Dion said. And I don't play well with others, and that's something I know about myself. So HOAs definitely do not work for me, especially when I have to see the other people there. G Glover, thanks. You're welcome. Duran Superfan. I like it. Gentlemen, I've been trying to purchase my first investment property for the last 2.5 years, but have been continually outbid by cash. I don't have deep pockets. Any tips for closing? Yes. Reverse offer strategy. Video on my channel, reverse offer strategy. You got to get closer to the deal, I think, and understand exactly what's most important to the seller, because it's not always price. You will find motivated sellers. You will find people that want to sell. They want to move. They want to do something different. And it's not always price for them. Sometimes it's, well, we want to wait 90 days. Or, well, it's a hoarder house. And it's like, well, we just want to leave as much of our stuff behind as we possibly can. These are things that a lot of the iBuyers or institutional buyers will not stand for. They're like, we want it completely clean. We just want to take title. So though you look for those situations and you have your agent ask the question, or you craft an email that they can forward on, basically saying, this is who I am. I really appreciate you listening to my offer. I understand that, while price is important, I just want to understand if that's your only concern. If their answer back is, yes, prices are only concern, you're not going to win the deal. If it is, actually, yeah, our top 3 things are actually, we want some flexibility because, our daughter's in school and we don't want to, move 4 months early or that sort of thing. Use the reverse offer strategy. Make sure you understand what the 3 most important things are to them. And you still might be disappointed. They still might lie to you and still take the bigger number. But if it works in your number and you're giving them the 3 things that they got, you at least have a shot at the deal.
So I like the timeline of 2.5 years, because in the last 2.5 years, I've purchased 3 properties. Matt, you've done tons. Are you paying all cash for all of them?
No, none, zero.
No. So finding out what matters to the seller is great advice. Here's my advice. I have not really had good luck with that, so I haven't relied on that too much. It's a great strategy. It's what I'm doing going forward. Speed. I don't have all the details of what you're doing, but when you say, I keep getting outbid, you have about 30 minutes, maybe an hour from when a property hit the market in the last 2.5 years to have submitted an actual DocuSigned offer. Not a contact, not an interest, not a let's schedule a tour. I mean, you contact your agent, you say, I want to make this offer with this much, and I recommended higher earnest money if it's possible to get their attention. I left contingencies in. A lot of people I would talk to would say, in our market here in Washington State, we can't buy it because we keep getting outbid by cash in 2 to 3 days. But if you can get that offer in within an hour, so your lender and your agent have to know that if they're not responding within 20 minutes, you're going to the next person on the list. So I want that letter of pre-qualification for the amount of the offer within 20 minutes. I want my agent to submit the offer to me to DocuSign within 20 minutes. So that's a total of 40 offers in. Because a lot of sellers are in the position where they can't, and this is for the last 2.5 years, it's changing going forward. But in the last 2.5 years, they can't believe the number that they're going to get. They're thinking their agent's crazy. The number that they recommended is hundreds of thousands of more than what they thought they were going to get. So you make an offer quick. You will have time during your inspection phase to then go decide if you want the property or not. And not very many offers get accepted, so it's not like you're wasting a lot of time. That person accepts your offer because it came in fast before they saw the tsunami of offers and cash offers that came in by the time someone else even found it a day or 2 later. If they've accepted your offer, in most cases, they have the sunk cost theory. They've already committed to selling with you. They've spent time interacting and communicating back and forth. So they've just worked with your offer. You might have less negotiating power to get the price down or to get concessions during closing because they had other offers come in, but you're just trying to close at the number that made sense to you. So that was the last 2.5 years. It seems to be shifting now. So if your local market hasn't, get as fast as you possibly can to get your offers in. So know your markets, know where to avoid, know what your current rents are, know what your current rates are. So you know the numbers that make sense and you can do it quickly. Still have an inspection period to get out if it doesn't make sense, or if it's in an area you don't actually want to invest in. But my 3 purchases were owner occupied, 2 investments. My friends that are buying, one was an FHA, one was a VA, but their offers are in fast.
Yes. We usually will have an offer in, if it's a property that we're interested in, we'll have an offer in within 2 hours. Tops. Yep. Speed definitely helps us for sure. Nicholas Massey, Bigger Pockets has a rookie show. If you ever want a rookie on your channel, let me know. I'd love to do it. Give it back to you guys, and that you gave me so much info. Yeah, Deanna and I will talk about it. We'll definitely figure something out. We love bringing.
I do deal deep delves all the time, Nick. So reach out.
Yeah,
reach out. Email in my chats often.
Dion has that program for sure. Yeah, that's awesome. Denver Gray. Dion just said we can invest in lotto tickets. That's what I heard.
Yep.
Same thing too.
Go for it.
Dividend Dave, equity is now PDOA, potential debt on asset. I like it. REI Stoners, inner Dexter. Very good. Cody Evers.
Try to sneak it through.
Yeah. Cody Evers, how did you get through the tough times during your early investment career? What kept you going? Being able to bounce debt back and forth on different credit cards. That's what kept me going. It was hard. We almost went bankrupt 3 times.
So if you don't invest and you don't have the stress of tenants and you don't have the stress of saving and you don't have the stress of things could break and you can get the 10 o'clock call, you don't have all of that. Life's better. You have the stress of one income forever, the potentiality of not being able to retire, Social Security not being there, your 401k crashing. That's way more stressful. That got me through it. The thought of, let's say I reach financial freedom, and let's say someday, maybe not today, but I retire and I don't work anymore. And I fail. Let's say I lose my properties and I have to go back to work. My worst case scenario is 98% of everybody's every day. That made it pretty easy to get through.
It's true. Yep. And that's the other thing is you have to be, you're going to fail at stuff. That's the way it goes. A tenant's going to call you a slumlord. They're going to say all sorts of mean, nasty things to you, even when you don't deserve it.
Oh, your sister's going to call you a slumlord.
My father-in-law called me a slumlord. True story. And then we became best friends.
What's funny with the people you know is you do something like make a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And your friends go, your shirt's wrinkly. When'd you lose all your hair? And strangers go, thank you so much for sharing your information. This is what I've done with it. You've helped us so much.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's nuts. Wouldn't trade it for anything. RE3, hey, what's going on? 2 amigos. Yes, sir. Anna K, I found this very useful to have you 2 together. Dion for the Western and Matt for the Eastern climates, otherwise known as Siberia, that affect rentals. Thank you, Anna K. You're very welcome. RE3, hey, Matt. Hey, RE3. I feel silly for leaving this radiology job in the military. It's 3 to 4 days of light work per week, lots of time off with full-time pay and benefits. My service commitment expires next spring, so it seems like to me it's time to go. As a unretired person, I can only tell you that you'll know when it's the right time to go. For Dion, he knew within 7 minutes that it was the right time to go and work. And that's what Dion and I, quite frankly, we talk about off camera, is there's things that we want to have in alignment. There's things we want to have kind of check the box and done. And once we've done those things, we can truly close the chapter and walk away.
I said this on a video on Zuber's channel the other day. Yesterday, I think, maybe the day before.
Didn't see it.
Every night's Friday night, it all blends together. Too much water. And I think some people are very fortunate that they hate their job, that they hate going to work every day, that they post the meme, TGIF, oh crap, tomorrow's Monday. Like they just dread going to work. They reach financial freedom or get really close to it. And it's just, I'm out of here. That's a great, easy decision. I was unfortunate because I really liked it. Like I liked my job. I had control of my schedule. I was helping people. I got to play in trucks like they were go-karts. It was a hard choice. It took 4 years. And then I was finally, I had the best day and I was like, I'm at the top of my game. I should go. So it's not easy to leave when you like the job. It's easier when you don't like it. But eventually time freedom will win out for you too, even though it's a job that you think is fairly easy and you like doing it.
He Michael Jordaned it. He left on top. That's a sports ball reference. Let's see. Dawn, my house in Arizona is 3 feet from above the street, and the very corner of the property is considered a flood zone. I tried to get a HELOC and they wanted flood insurance. I said, forget it. Forget it, going to sell. Yeah, sounds right. I get that for sure. RE3, what's up all nighter hider if you're still here? Robert Farinelli, what's so inherently bad about DIY electrical if you are confident in what you are doing and know the code? Electricians cost too much. $300 for 1 or 2 hours is pricey. So I don't pay anywhere near that, number one. And number two, it is liability. if you do it and it causes a fire and they trace it back to what you did because you did something wrong, you were allowed to work on it, but they can actually deny your claim.
And know your local laws, like in Washington State. You can work on the stuff where you live.
Sure.
You can't, unless you are a licensed electrician, work on a rental.
Yep.
So everyone does, but you then assume all responsibility.
Yeah, you can find electricians cheaper than that. What I do is I actually will contact a company and say, I've got 4 or 5 things or 6 things that I want done. And so they're all properties that are kind of close by to each other. And I just say, give me a rate for the day to hire that person, and then just go make those stops and do those different things. That's usually what I do, and it works pretty well. Let's see. RE3, 3 hours for 1 to 2 hours of bond insured electrical work is a bargain. Not where I'm from. And I'm only about 45 minutes east of Robert. I pay 50 to 75 bucks an hour for a licensed and insured electrician. The key is finding the guys that do side hustles and they have the insurance and they have their in my case, they have their master's license. If I find those 2 things, and the master's license and the insurance, they can do anything that any other company can do. And I don't need to pay because you have a pretty van that's nicer than the one I drive.
I've used Thumbtack in my area for electrician, and the average is 90 to 115 an hour.
Yeah, 300 bucks it's just nowhere near that. That means that you're calling somebody that has a beautifully lettered van. All-nighter hire. Oh, hey to each other. Andrew Pete, unannounced in person, sir. Visit for Zuber, but not the lumberjack. Yeah.
Zuber doesn't live in Siberia.
And it's like a few thousand miles less. But now Deanna has lots of time, so I'm sure we'll get that eventually. Deanna and I are we're going to do something in Vegas, so we'll hang out. We'll hang out a lot there because we're not going to have to rush back to anything. Let's see. Robert Finelli, I'll just get a friend who is one to check it out. Yeah, that's what I would do. Janet Santiago. Hello, Janet. Hello. Don and Bev Perkins, now in year 2. Yes, I'm a lighter sleeper now too. Yep, but the property managers help that. Slower growth of manager, but better sleep. Sure. Thanks for this, guys. No problem. Happy to do it. Happy to do it. Let's see. Crap. It just moved. There we go. Okay. Alley Gaines. Thank you guys. Great. I'm an investor and it would cash flow as a rental for me. Problem is it's for my brother's family, so it would be owner occupied, so he would rely on refi and fluctuating prices. Okay. Chester Williams, this question is for everyone, though I know it's something you guys currently do, but would you consider subletting any of your properties and follow up why or why not? Dion?
I consider it. I have a guy that does short-term rental where he rents it at a premium and then he handles the short-term stuff. I don't have a problem with that. My issue is I would do it with my single family houses. I always say I have one, but I also have a triplex that is a house and a duplex. If those houses were ever vacant, I would short-term rental those or sublet to somebody who would then short-term rental. I don't want to do short-term rental in a small multifamily next to long-term tenants. So I'd have to cycle through and get short-term rentals into the whole small multifamily. But yes, I would consider it.
Yeah, generally speaking, I don't sublet. Don't want the extra headache. Jason C. I live on the California Central Coast. Very hard market for investment, but I've been looking at Bakersfield. It's about 2 hours from me. I think it might be a real possibility. Cool.
Draw a circle around Bakersfield and get out to like Taft. Not quite down to Fraser Park, but there's a point leaving Bakersfield where prices and rents start to make an equilibrium. And my brother landed out in Rosemont, right out by Edwards Air Force Base. Able to buy, cash flow, less restrictive than LA County.
Love it. Love it. Don and Bev Perkins, HOAs are a mixed bag. We have them and one is basically toxic, but the other 2 are run well. So non-events. Approval for renovations is a pain though. Approval for renovations is a pain and you can never guarantee how long that HOA isn't going to be toxic. That's the risk there. Chester Williams, as insight for the question, though the most popular use for subletting could be short-term rentals such as Airbnb or VRBO. I was thinking more in general about subletting and not for any specific purpose. Yeah, so we, just as a general rule, we don't do subletting because notification of that subletting it's easier to say no. And then if somebody wants to do it, they can call us and say, this is the situation, and then we'll hear them out. But yeah, generally speaking, not really a fit. Don't want the extra steps. Chester Williams, totally random aside, listening to the Bigger Pockets podcast today, David Green mentioned the book Pitch Anything by Oren Klaff about learning practical, effective salesmanship may be worth a read. Maybe I would, so as someone who is, the other thing that I'm a lead at is enterprise sales. I can tell you that the best book is Solution Selling by Sam Bosworth. I've actually trained in that book and actually taught that book. I was a horrible teacher of that book because it's, there's a concept, something called eagles and non-eagles. Eagles are people that have the natural tenets and skills for how to negotiate and get deals done. Other 90%, they can learn it, but it's not second nature to them. And so what I have found is the processes that gives you, it will get you proficient at being able to do it. But likely there's still going to be those guys that go into the room and no matter what they're selling, they're going to beat you anyway. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt. This t-shirt.
Most people underestimate the value of learning how to do sales.
Yes. Totally.
I recommend actually watching some of Chandler David Smith's YouTube content.
Okay.
He's a real estate investor and he talks about multifamily and that stuff's great. But he made his money in door-to-door pest control sales. So his sales concepts that come out in his videos are brilliant. And I would watch his videos. And then I would go to my truck driving school to all the locations and teach office staff. Here's a sales tactic or a sales strategy that I want you to implement. And we grew to the largest school in the state by 1,200%. So it was very effective.
That's awesome. Yep. Yeah. He's an eagle. He's an eagle. I've seen enough of his videos. He's an eagle. He's just dialed in, like he gets it. Let's see. Every night is Friday night and every day is Saturday. Love that 100%. It is true. That is for them. Yes. RE3 for Dion. What was your cushion when you knew you were financially free and finally retired? Was it real estate income covering 2x, 3x, 5x your living expenses?
Ironically, the only one you didn't put. It's a little over 4x. So I was comfortable at 1x. Like financial independence happened there. You can change jobs without having to worry about income because your expenses are covered. I wouldn't say I'm going to retire because I've covered my expenses. 2 times, 3 times, you're not really set up for a big medical problem. You're not really set up for a significant rent crash, which we've never seen, but it can happen in a local market. But 4 and will grow to 5 easily just because of rents growing and my mortgage is being fixed rate debt. Very comfortable at that. So I spend probably 3 and I'm going to increase it to maybe 4,000 a month. And rental profit, especially after these 2 tenant turnovers with holy crap, rents are changing, is going to be closer. It's going to be closer to $1,000 a unit as an average cash flow, pure cash. It's crazy.
That's awesome. I love it. I love that. Let's see. RE3. I love my job too, Dion, but I love freedom, travel, and being in charge of my time more. People close to me are saying I'm stupid to give up 15 years of training and a high paying job. I respect people who leave their career early, like before age 40 to 50. Oh, so close, Dion. That is super young. For Dion, did you go part-time or just cut cold turkey and didn't look back? It's the second one.
I was working full-time, 50 to 60 hours a week. We had a problem with our company that took about 2 months. I mean, I brushed up on a law enforcement tactic called the read interview and interrogation technique to like psychologically get into what I considered an opponent, was a state agency trying to shut our company down. Met with an attorney, strategized for weeks, had the meeting, knocked it out of the park. By the end of a 2-hour meeting, I brought an entire state agency to our side to be supportive instead of combative. 5 minutes later, like the meeting's wrapping up, and I contact the owners. I'm like, hey, stay on this Zoom for a minute. And that was it. And then I took 2 weeks to kind of like, empty my office and make sure all accounts were handed over and everything. But that was it. Cold turkey, 60 hours, 50 to 60 hours a week that are just instantly mine.
It's awesome. Abolish the Federal Reserve. Tell me how you really feel. Afternoon, do either of you have a video series course for newbie investors? Also, do you offer one-on-one calls for investment questions? So I know Dion's course is in development. My course is in development. Dion, do you have an ETA of when your course will be available to the public?
No, I reached out to a couple and I got very different pricings on what it takes to set it up. The average seems to be around $5,000. And I'm trying to do this without charging people, but to put out 5,000 to make a course, I don't know. There'll have to be some kind of charge there. I stopped doing the let me take a call.
Yep.
Because it was another job. It was 20 to 30 hours a week of everybody's got a great reason and a great story of why they want to call. But I'll do emails. You send me an email, I'll answer questions. I do live streams every Tuesday. You do live streams every Sunday, and we will go for like 3 hours. So we literally answer questions.
Yeah.
And if the question is too personal and you don't want to share private details, then email. I'll try to answer those. But my problem with the calls wasn't so much that it was 20 to 30 hours a week for me. It was 20 to 30 hours a week where at least half of that wasn't anybody who was going to take action. It was somebody who watches YouTube and thought, that guy will talk to me. Let's have a call. Like they were, and other people shocked me, had the call, then took action. So it's worth doing it, but it's not a good return on time.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Cause I'd done the same thing for a long time as well, taking calls. And like you said, so many of it just doesn't go anywhere. And it's not that the information they didn't get was pure gold. They just didn't take action. And so I think, so yes, I have a course coming. It will be probably sometime this year and faster if I retire sooner. But yeah, we'll definitely have a course, and then we're trying to figure out what the makeup of that's going to be. Mine's, so we're just a little bit different from the perspective that I think Mike's One Rental at a Time, I think, is a fantastic course. I think it's well worth the $300 that you're going to pay for it. I think my focus really is going to be what I'm really good at, which is I can find the deals, I can create the deals, I can close the deals. But what I became a lead at is managing my properties and onboarding properties, and then managing processes within that. That's really where my focus is going to be. And yeah, that's my plan. That's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do in our course to help folks out, because especially if you want to grow and get to volume, you must have processes, you must have things like that in place to be able to allow for that level of growth. Because honestly,
I have considered here's the course amount to try to at least get to break even on that. But here's a fee for one-on-one time so that person has skin in the game. Like on my live streams, I asked one time to try to figure out what would be a fair amount to charge. I think Zuber does like $300 for 30 minutes.
he does.
And so $300 for an hour, probably something like that. So because I'm like Zuber, I don't want it to happen. I like the time freedom and the no schedule.
Sure.
But if somebody's that serious about it and an hour can help them, maybe we'll see.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. We'll have something coming, but just watch all 3 of our live streams. Cause quite frankly, One Rental at a Time, mine, Dion's, we put a ton of content out there for free. There's going to be some stuff, obviously, it's available in the course. It's putting it all in one place. And so there will be obviously tremendous value to that. But one of the things I think is challenging is, you look at a lot of different courses out there, $2,000, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000. And I see a lot of the $20,000 that offer you, that basically get you zero return. I see some of the 15 ones that are pretty good and they're decent, but I still think that that's a lot of money. But one of the things that's challenging is I want to help people, but there's also massive expenses that go into that stuff, because I'm not a marketing guy. I'm not a tech guy that's going to set all that stuff up, manage it, like I'm not going to do all that stuff. So it has to be self-sustaining and not be literally something I'm writing a check to go do.
The thing that I have a problem with courses that I like about what we're doing with courses is there's no secret sauce. There's no, I could totally teach you how to do this. All you have to do is take the course and then I'll share the information. That's upselling or whatever they want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
Our information is available on our channels. Our information is available on One Rental at a Time. But it's 3-hour live streams. It's hundreds of videos, or a couple $100, a few $100. Here's a course set up chronologically with the steps that you should learn in order. that you can then go back and reference exactly what point. To me, that makes sense, not the $15,000 or $20,000 courses. I mean, if that's Chris Crone coming and living at your house for a month and helping you make the deals and look on your stuff, sure, maybe then.
You'd
But
be
not
like
if you're sitting in a room with 100 people listening to somebody talk that you can watch them on a video.
Yeah. We're being rejoined by our other man. There he
Nice.
goes. Where's Millennial Mike? There he is. He's back with us.
Hey,
Love
buddy.
it. How
Hey,
do you
man, I
feel-
hope my
How do you
camera
feel
starts.
now? Yeah, you're good. How do you feel?
Yeah,
now?
I'm good, man. I had a really good time. I actually
Yeah.
had a really good time. She
Yeah.
was extremely friendly, very cool. I literally sung your guys' praises. The final message I gave was, dude, you need to put yourself, if you were the 5th person in a group of 4 successful people, you'd be successful. And I was like, my mentor, Mark, Lumberjack Landlord, Dion from Beyond Talking, Michael Zuber, or my 4 millionaire friends I spend the most amount of my time talking to. And if you were the 5th person in that group of 4, there's no way you can't become a successful millionaire. So she's like, oh yeah, that's so smart. I was like, I know you talked to these guys, right? They've done some interviews with you. She's like, yeah, they're all really nice. I was like, yeah,
Pressure-
yeah.
Pressure should be on. If you don't, we're voting off the island.
Oh, dude, well, shoot. I mean, I would vote me as the first one off too. But as the youngest, I'm the workhorse. So you guys have to keep me. At least
Well,
to the
dude,
end.
we gotta no, we have you to up the pretty quotient. You see what you're looking at here. I mean, you're
Bro, first of all, we all know that Dion is the most attractive of the 3 amigos. I've said this
We-
many times.
We
right?
we like Dosick Ease. He turned down that ad campaign.
Most interesting
He
Dion in
is
the
the most
world.
interesting man in the world. Andrew P, love it all. You're the best. You guys, you're very welcome, Andrew. Happy to do this. Nick Massey, Jason C, single family homes don't cash flow, especially in California. Hope you're looking for a 2, 3, 4 unit property, might find closer to you. Yeah, that's the beautiful thing about California. It's such a massive market that there's so many differences throughout the entire state.
Yeah, Nick, I would be hesitant to say single family don't cash flow here because in Washington State, in King County, and the counties I invest, single family don't cash flow. Are you doing short term? Are you renting by the room? Because Todd Baldwin lives in Seattle and is making $40,000 a month, right, by the room. Are you drawing a big enough circle out? Because yes, in Southern California, very hard. But my brother invested in Rosamond, single family houses, and retired at 50 with 10 paid off rentals. So he was able to cash flow enough cash flow to pay the rentals off. There's an investing strategy that's working in each market. You need to figure out which one it is and how to do that.
Yeah, true story. Luis 9M9. Welcome to the channel. First time I've asked a question. I'm excited to answer all 3 that I see from you. Hey fellas, I know I've heard Zuber has said that with you guys on, he'll say he tries to buy properties below the median house price to protect himself. I tried to figure that out, but couldn't. How does it protect you? I think the idea or the concept there is that below the median house price, those typically appreciate the fastest. They have the biggest buyer pool because if it's below the median price, it's typically an entry-level home. And so those types of homes are usually the ones that programs are created around. That's what I take when he says that. But Dion, maybe you have a different view of that.
We are not an echo chamber. Like, we don't always agree.
No, we don't.
And we can make this as complex or as simple as we want to. That's way too much thinking for me. I don't even know what the median home price is in my area. I don't know what an average duplex would go for. I look at the current interest rate.
1.14 million. Just, I'm teasing. I have no idea.
Right, probably in Seattle, yes. So I look at the current interest rates, know what the current rents are, and then I use the price to figure out, am I going to get the yield I'm looking for? Zuber has a much larger portfolio, and he is looking at what is the safest duplicatable strategy on a large scale to help protect myself, make sure I'm not paying more than the average in the area. But maybe that's an area in the average in the area that has an ADU, or it has an above garage unit, or it has something that wouldn't show up. For me, very simple. What does the math tell me without even, I don't know what the area average house is here. I don't know what our affordability index is. Like we talked about earlier in the video, I think there's a flaw in that. So that would be my answer is, if you want to be as complex as Mike, it's something to consider. It's not something I've ever looked at.
Yeah, agreed. Thoughts, Mike? Anything?
Give me the question one more time. I was trying to find it. I was catching back
Yeah,
up on
the
live
question,
stream.
the question is talking about basically buying of homes, single family homes under the median home price. That's one of Mike's strategies.
Mhm.
I believe that's why he does it, is basically because there's seemingly a much larger market there, and those aren't being built anymore, right? Those below median home prices.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
I mean, everything I buy is under the median. You know, everything I have in Gary, Indiana is extremely inexpensive. I know this is a strategy that Chris Crone talks about a lot. He talks about it. One of his reasons that he gives for it is because it's hard. They don't have as much room to fall, right? If something did happen, if a recession did happen, you know, there's not as much room for that house to fall. And typically what you see, I know that we've talked about it before, Dion, when a market crashes, or even the only time that rental prices crashes, it happens in the high end luxury stuff, right? When the rich and famous start to pull their belts a little bit tighter, it's the overpriced, over median, those prices and those rental prices that start to come down, whereas everything else really kind of just stays the same. So it's not a bad area to play in. Also, on top of that, it's more affordable. I mean, I was just chatting with the lady who's interviewing me, you know, well, why'd you go to Gary, Indiana? Well, I'd rather make a $60,000 mistake than a $600,000 mistake. If I'm going to be new and screw something up, I know which one I'd choose to do. So if you play in the median and build some experience down there, and down the line, sometime you say, you know what, I'm going to try high on luxury Airbnb rentals like Anna Kelly does. Dude, have at it, man, but have the experience first. And the foundational base of rental properties that are paying you consistent income to cover any mistakes you may make down the road.
I concur. All Nighter Hider, Pitch Anything is a great book. Claude Mitchell, duplex needing windows replaced, both occupied for many years. Question, what is the best way to address this with the least inconvenience for the tenants? If your house was built before 1979 and there is the chance that you have lead paint, I would not do it with people in the unit. If it is newer than that, i.e. 80s, 90s, what have you, the most convenient way is to have them go into the unit one day and remove all the trim that's needed to replace the window. But have them remove all that trim one day, and then the next day have them put all of the windows in, and then the next day have them retrim everything out. So don't do like rooms and sections and messes here and like that takes way too long. Have them do it in sections. That's what I've done. But again, only if they're in an area where you know that there is no existence of lead paint. You guys have anything else to chime in there?
I've only done that twice.
Yep.
And I did it a little different. We did bedrooms, trim out, in, trim, done one day. Everything else could take a couple of days, but we had the least amount of inconvenience on the bedrooms in just one day. So I guess talk to your contractor, figure out what makes the most sense. Age of the building is, only got one that's from before 1979, and I would do the same thing. I would not break open anything with paint in it, even if you've had a test and you don't see it with tenants there.
Never. Nope, not worth it.
Yeah, every building that I own except for my duplex is prior to 1979. They're all old Midwest houses built in the 40s, 50s, 60s. They all have issues like that. Any major repairs like that are done in between tenants. Before a tenant goes in there, we remodel it, take care of everything. Or if one moves out, we remodel it. I don't want to do anything big or major while people are living in there. Even if it wasn't for the paint issue, it's just an inconvenience on them. And, God, you don't want them like bumping up against wet paint. I try to schedule all of my repairs to happen when people don't live in the unit unless they're minor.
Good call. Robert Farinelli, how do you deal with different agencies having different rules on what is a bedroom? Section 8 and Manchester COC have different rules. They do. What was thinking about Section 8, but they want a full closet and think that the ceiling is too low. Yeah, they want cubic feet in a room in one area where COC doesn't have a problem with it as use of a bedroom. Too much of a hassle. Yep, too much of a hassle. Sorry, that's just the way it goes. I mean, that's, this is one of the issues. They have a huge shortage of housing, but they want to pick and peck about, 14 cubic feet. I know Dion's glaring at me with his fire eyes, but
no, we talked about it earlier. I've got a county that I tell them to F off every time it comes up, and I've got another county that I love, and I'll invest in Section 8 there all day long. So if you have a problem with that housing authority, tell them. Don't just back off and not communicate. Tell them and say, you're the problem. You're why I'm not listing this with your program, because They're supposed to be finding units.
Right.
And I would tell them via an email so that it's going to be on their server to their managers that these are the problems, or it'll never get fixed.
I concur. Yeah, I never, as you guys can imagine, when I have a problem with a policy with either a town, an agency, a housing authority, I actually have the phone call with them and then I follow up with an email because it's the only way it's going to change. I hope that it changes. If it doesn't, they know why. Don't bother me. Don't come to me. I told you why. This is why. And I do know that rule that you're talking about. For those of you guys who don't know, I'm not sure if you know if you have it in your state, but in our state, they actually count the cubic footage, not the square footage of a room. So if you want to deny it being a room and think you're going to get a 3-bedroom for a 2-bedroom cost because the cubic footage of a room isn't considered a bedroom, then you can not get the rental. And I just went through that with them. That's why I'm very passionate about it. It's just like, fine, don't take the rental, piss off. Chester Williams, thank you, Matt. Lumberjack Landlord, I got the last book on Amazon. We'll all be moving fast in the chat on getting these book recommendations. Yeah, I haven't read the pitch book, but solution selling, there's a concept in there called 9 boxes. If you can master that skill, you can have a productive conversation with pretty much anybody, even guys like this. Andrew P. Dion, what is the current status of your relationship with BP? Is there a divergence in philosophy or am I making something up? Totally get not addressing it, just curious.
Oh,
What's the tea?
here's the dish.
Uh-oh.
The Bigger Pockets is a brand that likes to bring in people to share ideas, and they have some good books. They don't want to grow someone else's brand. So if you don't have a YouTube channel or you have a small one or two, 1,000 people on there, they might have you on the show. They'll have someone on like Graham Stephan or Meet Kevin, but they tend to not have somebody on who has their own. They have a problem with, I wear a joke shirt from Office Space. Like, it looks like a logo, right? I'm not selling that or whatever. I'm a David Green fan. I'm super impressed with anybody who works in law enforcement who's able to put a string of sentences together and get the tone right because they're thinking 3 sentences ahead of what they're talking now, and he does that. It's like super rare. Normally, the only time cops can sound like they actually have knowledge is if they're repeating a code to you. Like, here's the law you broke, I had to memorize this for the academy. Other than that, they usually don't think. And I'm calling myself out on this too. So I'll watch anything with David Green, Mindy Jensen. I'm a big fan of Bigger Pockets. I like the Real Estate Rookie show. I like they bring it because I'm trying to talk to people who are starting or getting their next unit. I don't think if you have 8,000 units or 5,000 units, that you're watching content. Like that's not the person who's taking in those kind of shows. But Bigger Pockets talks to a lot of people who think that big, and it's unattainable to a lot of people. But one rental at a time, get the next deal. How do you start? That's on the Real Estate Rookie show. And so, and of course, I watched the Bigger Pockets Money because they break down people who don't just invest in real estate. So while I'm a fan, I don't think they're much of a fan of me. I was a teaching assistant for their boot camps. I was invited to talk at BP Con, and then that went away because of the logo thing. But they're a great platform to get the information to people. But yeah,
they pulled their invite because you wore a fake logo as a joke.
It could be other things. It could be some, and this is hypothetical, but it could be I'm pro Second Amendment. That might be an issue.
David Green's a cop.
It was a cop.
Yeah.
David Green doesn't make their social decisions.
Well, that's not
Hypothetical.
hot off the press. I don't know.
There you
what
go.
is.
There's the dish.
Oh my goodness. Well, Nathan Hatzer, never asked a question before. Excited to have you. Currently have a property under processing, and at times fear and doubt creep in, but listening to you guys reminds me that the worst thing that can happen is I'm back to square one. It really, truly is the worst that can happen. It's take it in stride, enjoy the journey. Yes, you're going to get the nervous tummies sometimes and the awake at night things. That's just life. but you're making an investment and you're putting yourself in a position to have a better life years from now. So congratulations.
I'm going to jump in on that one. Hold on real quick. So, so I feel bad, truly feel bad for rich people. Matt, you did not come from a rich background. Dion, I know you didn't. I absolutely didn't. Mike didn't. Zuber did. I feel so bad for people who grew up middle income, upper middle income, or worst of the worst, rich, because you are petrified of what it would be like to be me, or to be who I was and how I grew up. You know what? I don't give a flip if I lose everything. I can go back to drinking water out of the tap and having my hot dogs instead of a hot dog bun. I can have them with a piece of bread. Okay. I grew up Section 8, WIC. We were evicted all the time. We were the tenants that you didn't want, free lunches. You ran out of food stamps by the end of the month and you were hungry that last week. Bro, I can roll with it, man. We're good. But you're afraid of what your friends would think. You're afraid of losing your cars and your houses. And you sit around scared about that all the time. And maybe not this guy or friend here. I forget which one asked that question.
Yeah, not me.
But like, this is how so many people think, and they're afraid to take that step. When I sat there and said to myself, okay, I'm buying the first property, and my own grandma, whom I love very much, was like, well, what if this happens? And what if this happens? And oh my God, you could lose everything and blah, blah, blah. Most negative people you need to cut out of your life. Now, I'm not going to cut my grandma out of my life. She raised, and I love my grandma. That being said, I just don't sit around afraid of things. I mean, Dion knows, and I know, if you've had a job where someone can point a firearm at you and pull the trigger, there's just not a lot of things that scare you anymore. And so financial burdens, I will still have blood pumping through my veins the next day, even if the world comes colliding down. So I think it's important to get perspective. And I really, truly think poor people have a leg up. Poor people and immigrants, the ones that make something of themselves, dude, these are the people you want to be around, because they fought for it and they made it, and they have a tremendous work ethic and they overcame battles other people just can't understand. 9th grade dropout, in the Marine Corps, law enforcement officer. Mike came from a very tough background as well. And then there's me. You know, I mean, that's, we're lucky. If I'm being honest, we're lucky. I'm grateful I was poor.
No, I will agree with you. Lucky, and having a job where, you know, physical threats can happen. A lot of things don't scare you. Dating is always terrifying. But here's who I really feel bad for. I actually feel bad for these type of people. And I know these type of people. If their parents were rich.
Yeah.
So a super wealthy person right now might lose it. But if that person, I've got some friends, they make millions a year. They have teenagers. As a teenager, if I moved out of my house, moved into the Marines because they provided housing. So if I got out of the Marines and I've got a job at McDonald's and I could pay for my housing and pay for my own food, I would consider myself a success.
Yeah. Yes.
My friends with their teenagers who have lived in mansions, first car's $150,000. Parents have $300,000 cars, new ones every year because the old one got dirt on it. Like, what is that teenager possibly going to do in their 20s or 30s? That even comes close to where they were when they were 15. Like, that's who I feel really bad for. It's like, you know, put that poor cloak on and you have the superpower. But yeah, if we do drop back to we lose everything, our worst case is most people's best case or daily.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Millennial Mike and I tried to out hoopty each other. That's how we met.
That was how we first started Instagram messaging each other. You sent me a message about busted cars and then sent some of yours, and I sent some of my busted cars.
Yeah. You'll get this, Mike. When I started working at the police department, they called my cars rolling PC.
You're right. Warrant wagons. Oh, pull that guy.
Rolling probable cause. If you just see that car, you know you can pull that person over. They don't have insurance. They're probably not registered. Their license is suspended.
Oh yeah.
I drove 15, 20-year-old cars too. It's crazy.
I'm riding around with felony tabs.
Yeah, I literally got my stones busted yesterday when I got my car inspected. He goes, "Why do you drive this?" I drive an 07 Pontiac Grand Prix. He goes, "What? Why?" I said, "It's got a 3800 motor in it. These motors are the best motors that GM ever made. They don't die. They go for hundreds of thousands of miles with minimum maintenance." He looks at me, goes, "Respect."
Yeah, man.
I'm like, cool. That's what I was going for, but not really. I was like, it's the most expensive thing I've ever fixed on that car was like $269. It's perfect. So Nathan, thanks for asking the question. You're exactly right. Your mindset's exactly right. All that can happen is you lose. That's all that can happen. And so take it in stride, continue to educate yourself, doing the work, following people that have gone and taken these steps before you. That's some of the things that, I didn't have when I was trying to go through my journey. But you're heading down the right path. You're doing it right. RA3, Dion loved the story. No code on. Dion, and now you make videos while sliding down slides and getting upset with kids photobombing you.
You got to come over, Mike, and do some videos on the slides with me. I got new microphones that are cordless, so we can have two and record some videos on the slides together. That'd be good.
Yeah. So like the video, if you would like to see Dion and I like spooning each other as we slide down a slide together, we can maybe make that happen. Just I'll hold you from the back.
Oh, perfect.
I'll be ready.
Perfect. All right. So let's see. Nikodon with the extra free time. Yes. Chester Williams. Dion, talk financial freedom. Interesting. Do you think adding a glide path that eventually includes a call could work? Say, for example, a mini course first, then a call or something like that.
That's what we talked about. Yeah. Do a course and then maybe a follow-up with like Zuber does.
Yep. Yeah. I think in all honesty, I think we're all kind of learning what the best approach is. I'm looking at even kind of a hybrid of that. So we're going to try it. And if it doesn't work, here's the one thing that is my only criteria for doing a course is that I know that it can help them and that they're going to get a multiple of the value that's being charged. That's my criteria. Because it's going to take, I can tell you, it's going to take a tons of time to put that course together, because I will include a bunch of new content in mine. But yeah, that's kind of the thought process. All-nighter hider. Long-term success cannot be bought or handed out. It can only be achieved by due diligence and effort. Well said, Hyder.
Yeah, freaking the hard work is the bill you pay every day to make it
Heck
it
yeah.
there, man.
Heck
You got
yeah.
that freaking bill comes due every single day, and you're gonna either pay up or not.
That true story. REI Stoners. I listened to Bigger Pockets podcast where the mentor had the mentee print the purchase agreement to understand what he will be signing. Did either of you do this? I fell asleep reading it. Didn't. No.
Have you ever read a book, Matt, since 9th grade? Okay. Let alone a printed out form.
No.
You want to be aware of things like make sure your agent knows in your purchase agreement, what is your appraisal contingency? What is your inspection contingency? What is line 14? If you back out, does the agent get to keep your earnest money? Like there's all kinds of things that you want to know specific to your area, but read the whole thing. No.
Yeah, no.
It's DocuSign. You just go done.
Yep.
Chester Williams, Millennial Mike, 1000% agree. We are the sum product of the 5 closest people we associate ourselves with. Spot on and valuable insight. Man, I gotta get better friends.
Yeah, thank you for everybody who's watching this, spending time with us. Because like, dude, that's where I started. I started in the comment section of YouTube videos, and then eventually made the friends I have today.
Yeah,
that's how it works.
It's good to have you aboard. Chester Williams, I firmly believe we are but a mere collection of our habits, kind of like a computer program. We're only as good as the programs, i.e. habits we learn and operate from. Yeah, for sure. That's one of the things I talk about all the time with Dion and with Mike. My business is better for having known them. I mean, yeah, we get to have fun and joke around and do fun stuff like this together, but my business is better for having known them until I make a final decision on Section 8, and then I'll, send Dion a care package in the mail.
But at least you won't wonder anymore. You'll know.
Yes. Well, no, and that's the thing is it's really funny because, it really, what I really truly love and appreciate about the 4 of us is, and other experts on Mike's channel that I haven't worked with, but I've talked to outside of the channel, is that we all got there so differently, and different personalities and different approaches and different management styles, so different, and different business goals. And so that's what I love about it, is it really gives anybody the opportunity to figure out that one of those trips, if you can't see it represented here in these trips, then go make your own and let us know how it went. And maybe you'll be on with us in another year or two. Jason C, Nicholas Massey. Yes, I've had my eye on small multifamily units. Absolutely. Thanks. Cool. All-nighter hider. Well typed, Chester. I agree. Cato Disc, you've never asked a question before. I'm excited to have you here. Matt, can you talk about why you switched accountants? Oh, yeah. And or what you look for in an accountant? Dion, do you use accountant or bookkeeper? My CPA. Yeah. So Dion uses a CPA. I use an EA with a CPA on staff, CPA, certified public accountant, EA, enrolled agent. Every year the IRS comes out with new rules. And in their new rules, every year an EA has to take that test of those new rules and some of the old rules and pass that test in order to be considered an enrolled agent. You don't need a tax attorney if you ever get audited. That enrolled agent can actually represent you in those hearings because they are masters of the IRS code. So I moved to an EA because my CPA got me audited a number of times. Because I just report the numbers and he's supposed to make sure that they all come out right. So we pay our taxes. That's how it works. My CPA got me audited a number of times. I was with him for far too long. I was with him when all I had was a W-2 job. And I think at that, he was probably pretty good. And then as I got bigger and bigger and bigger as a business, as a property owner, as a real estate investor, he was no longer a fit for me. So the reason that I moved was he wasn't as good being what I needed now today. And I wanted somebody that could teach me and be elite in their field. If it's one thing that being elite at something teaches you, it's that you want to find the elite person in whatever field you're searching for, because they do it all. They know it all. They've seen it all. And so that's what I feel like. So I've got Bob Langworthy. He's actually was an expert from Mike's channel, has his own channel, Main Bean Counters. He does returns, I think 38 states around the country. He's based in Maine. He's only about 45 minutes from me. And he did a phenomenal job. And in fact, he also does proactive planning with me. So every 3 months I have a conversation with him and say, hey, this is what's coming up. This is what I've done. This is what we're doing. Anything wrong with that? Or should I look out for something or do something there? Actual tax planning so we can be more aggressive. So yeah, EA is what I look for, but somebody that also owns properties themselves. He's going to stay on top of that more than anything else because it directly impacts his pocket. Long answer, but there you go. RE3, my property manager in Little Rock took 5 months and $5K in expenses to fill my single family home. First month of the new tenant, there are 7 repairs and $1K more in repairs. What should I do? Visit.
They should ask Millennial Mike what he would do since he's the one here with property management.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you see that question, Mike? RE3.
Yeah, it didn't pop up for me for some reason. I was trying to read it.
Yeah. So RE3, my property manager in Little Rock took 5 months and $5K in expenses to fill my single family home. I don't know, like, unless this thing has literally got green ooze coming out the side of the house, it shouldn't take anything more than 5 days to rent in any market in the country right now.
Yeah. So my question would be to our friend here. I'm going to go ahead and assume that you did not say something like, okay, I want $1,300 in rent no matter what. And, maybe the market value is really only $1,200 and then your property manager is screwed. I'm going to assume that you went to your property manager and said, okay, well, what do you think it's going to rent for? Well, we think it'll go for $1,100. Okay, well, let's get it listed. If it took that long in this market, extremely surprising. That does not sound right. Because first of all, a couple things can happen. All right. After a couple of weeks, if you got no interest, why didn't we drop it $50? Because at some point, supply and demand, you can drop, you listed it for 100, there would be 1,000 applicants tomorrow, right? At some point, you can drop this thing down to the point where you're going to get inundated with applicants. Now, maybe, unfortunately, it's lower than what you thought. That's not what you wanted. I don't know what the local deal is with your market, but if this property manager is not on the ball enough that they're recognizing it's been 2 weeks, we have no interest, we need to drop the price. And it took them however many months it did to finally get, but 5 months?
Yeah.
3 months? That's
5 months.
That is way too long. I want to know, when did you drop the price? Who was applying? How much interest did we have? If this is your only property with them and this is your experience with them, I would be having a very hard conversation with them. And I would probably be interviewing and speaking with other property managers because that is unacceptable. 5 months is unacceptable. For reference, it takes me at most usually about 6 weeks, anywhere between 3 to 6 weeks from once I've listed it to when they've moved in.
Yeah, agree with that. Yep. He adds, it's a unit I've never seen and it no longer makes any money. Well, I can't imagine after 5 months it would make any money.
Yeah.
I am sure they are stealing from me. Yeah, me too. But
Oh.
it's not enough for me to pay a surprise visit. If it's not enough for you to pay a surprise visit, honestly, you probably don't have enough other stuff in that market. I would be putting that thing up for sale and selling it.
Yeah, if you don't have the team in place to invest in this, investing at a distance relies heavily on having a team. And the most important person or people in that team are not your property manager. They're number two. Number one is other investors in the area that you can trust and that you can talk with and that you can consult with, who will give you referrals for a property management company. Because in my case, with my mentor, Mark, he's not trying to sell me anything. He just said, talk to these people, give them a phone call. And then I was able to build the rest of the team most of the way through his referrals. After that's the property manager. So if you're not going to immediately right now today, call 3 other property managers and say, this is the problem I had. What do you think? Okay, I want to hire you. What does that look like? If that's not the conversation you're going to have because you don't want to go down that route, then yeah, what Matt said, sell it, dude, sell it, get out. You know.
Yeah. It's a liability if it's going months unrented.
Yeah.
Robert Farinelli, yep, section 8 was cubic feet. COC is square feet. Yep, of any space that's at least 4 feet of ceiling height. Yeah, and you run into problems. So in New England, for those of you who don't know, we have a lot of capes. We have a lot of houses that have what's called a knee wall, which is only about 2 or 3 feet off the floor. And then there's the roof line that comes through the bedroom. And some of them have more aggressive roof lines than others. And so it can create a feeling of it's a very tight room, and cubic feet, those usually don't, they usually don't meet cubic foot standards. So you can literally have a 4-bedroom house that section 8 says is only 1 bedroom or 2. And hey, if you don't want the inventory, that's fine. Let's see, Kip Stevens, SOS Properties. What book was Chester Williams talking about? He was talking about Solution Selling by Sam Bosworth. All-nighter hider. Every man is independent of all laws except those prescribed by nature. He is not bound by any institutions formed by his fellow man without his consent. Cruden versus Neal. Case law. All-nighter hider, I know, is studying case law right now. Thanks for dropping some knowledge. Dividend Dave, subscribe to Chandler David Smith. Thanks for the recommendation. Yeah, I think he's good. I know that Dion watches him. I don't know about
I'm a big fan of him as well.
Yeah,
He and I actually have chatted a few times. He recently released a course. He actually asked if I would make a video about my thoughts, gave me free access to the course, said, if you like it or you don't like it, I want to know either way. And I thought it was a great course. You know, I think one rental at times is better. But it was a really good, it was a good course. He's a good dude. So
nice. Awesome. Investing in rentals, I found my passion. Love the title. And he says, love it. Fantastic. Robert Farinelli, and they allow 50 square foot rooms for single occupancy use bedroom. Yeah, that's a tight room for sure. Elise, fire me, please. So true about Section 8. It's not tenants' problem, is who handles the program. Yep. Those caseworkers act like landlords are begging. The process takes forever in LA County. So here's what I will say. As bad as my experience has been with some Section 8, I still want to help the program. And I don't think it's a lot of the people necessarily running the local program. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. They have rules. It's government. They have rules that they have to play within. I get that. So I'm not going to beat the tar out of them on, I think that's a stupid rule. You know what? In all honesty, if they're honest, they're probably saying, yeah, I think that's a stupid rule too. And it's a dumb rule, and it's costing me a bunch of units that I'm just trying to put, I'm sure that they're sitting in meetings going, okay, so we're going to say no to that unit because we're worried about cubic feet, but the guy's homeless, just so I'm clear. Like, they're making that argument on our behalf as well. That's where I think the system needs to be changed significantly. However, recognize that you are working with a government agency, and just like Dion said, there are good ones, there are bad ones. I think I still have a good one, so I'm trying to work with them, but we'll let the jury find out. Dion, anything you want to add to that?
No, you covered it. That's good.
Yeah, I don't think it's, so just to be really clear, I don't think it's the necessarily all on the shoulders of the people that are the face to the market, if you will. All-nighter hider, I'm very comfortable living poor. I think all of us are, which is, I think, a superpower.
Always Sunny in Philadelphia had that one scene where they go, sucks for them. They're new poor. They don't know how to live like this. We're old poor.
Exactly.
That is a great point.
Yeah. All-nighter hider. I'm comfortable living poor. I already read that. Chester Williams, much appreciated. All-night hider. Firmly believe that. And that came after serious soul searching after my father passed. And that's one of those insights I came across. Josh Engen. Do you have any experience in sub-metering water lines on multifamily property? If so, you think it was worth it? Currently, we're paying for water because it's not sub-metered. You guys sub-meter?
Everything but water. Water is the only thing that in my area, the municipalities require it be in the owner's name anyway. So it wouldn't help to separate it. I could separate it and then bill them differently. And in some areas, make sure you know your local laws. You're not allowed to charge a penny more than what you're actually billed for water or electric. In our state, it's not the case. So I do a flat, like $55 a month for water, even though the water bill is usually like 47 to 50. And then in the summer, there's 1 or 2 months that spike up and it just balances out. So the rest of the year paid for those months that were more.
Yeah, the only ones that we don't do anything special for the unit. We just recognize that we put that in the rent. So we make the calculation and say, hey, yes, the rent's $200 more than what you're looking at, but it includes heat and hot water as an example, because it might be off of a shared system. That happens a lot in the Northeast.
Smart to do that with all of them, Matt, because Section 8 won't pay for utilities in some areas.
Yes.
But if it is your industry standard to include it in the rent, then that is factored as rent.
Yep. Yeah, we've tried that too. We've had an argument about that as well. I'm just like, man, you guys are really making
it has to be what you're doing for everyone, though. It can't
Sure.
be for just them, right? So if you're doing it for everyone, it's great.
Yeah, the challenge comes into play because we have some units that have an individual heating system and others that just don't. So we have a 6 unit that has individual heating systems. We have a 4 unit that has 1. And so, you know, that's usually where the challenge is. All-nighter hider. Chester, Mike Dillard talks about the subject in the form of conscious and subconscious thinking, as well as chemicals released in our bodies, essentially habits. Chris Webb, good afternoon from Central Virginia. Good afternoon, Chris. All-nighter hider, good call. The like button is lonely. I agree.
Give it some love, bro. Give that thing a little bit of attention.
All-nighter hider. We appreciate that. Andrew P., thanks so much for answering the question. Dion, props to you for being direct. I also like the BP Money Show, and the Rookie Show is fine too. I like the 3 Amigos better. Millennial Mike is okay, I guess.
Hey, that's the best compliment I've had all day.
I was going to say, that's the nicest thing he's seen all day, just being called okay. He was kidding, of course. Esther CH. Esther, thanks for joining. You've never asked a question before, so I'm happy to have you here. I am blessed to be living in the US. Opportunities to success when working hard. Enjoyed the conversation. Esther, we appreciate that. We agree. I'm going to speak on Dion and Mike's behalf that we do all agree that this is the greatest country in the world.
Yeah.
If you don't like
most
it,
opportunity.
Yeah. If you don't like it, want to fight about it.
Even though the Esther that I know works for an evil city. Invest in a great city, though.
Nikodon, have to run and meet a contractor at a trashed out house. Great show, gentlemen. You're welcome, Don. Good luck in your trash out review. Rick Ramirez, Dion has a suitor, now doesn't need to worry about dating.
That's about me and Mike going down the slides together.
Yes, I was going to.
Nice. That's right. He's off the market, ladies. Sorry. I got him.
Peter Schiff, thank you guys for being honest. We certainly do try. I mean, I know that the goal is always in honesty. And I think if something ever changed, I don't know. I think I don't have any reason to lie to people. It just is what it is. Hate me because I was honest. I'd rather you.
The best thing about having memory issues, you have to always be honest. You can't remember, I said this differently, I wrote this differently, whatever. You just, here's everything. If it works for you, great. If not, there's the door.
Yes. Millennial Mike, based on the comment about the rich upper middle class, do you think they would be as afraid of losing everything with the knowledge of how to generate wealth again, such as investing through SFRs at one time?
Yeah, man, they're going to be afraid no matter what, because everybody fears the unknown, myself included. Everybody does, right? They don't know what it's like to have to start from nothing, you know? I mean, and there's nothing wrong with where they're at. I mean, who doesn't want to provide a better life for their kids, you know? And then your kids grow up rich. But at the end of the day, they are going to come from a different background worth of experiences than Matt or than Dion has. You know, I am not afraid of being poor. I'm not afraid of having to start over with zero. I'm not afraid of having a bank account with zero, because that was my entire life. That's my whole family history's life. Everybody's been poor and unsuccessful. And so, yeah, it just doesn't faze me. But to somebody else, I mean, that would be extremely intimidating. They don't have any concept of what it is. Now, they would probably come to find out they're going to figure out how to live through it, but it's going to take some getting used to. I mean, nobody wants to trade in their Voss or their Fiji for their, Kirkland signature brand water bottles right here. And as I said earlier, this is a luxury for me. I used to live off the tap water, or unlike Matt, who just drank out of the hose.
This is
It's
actually
better out of the hose.
it's way better. It's colder. If only you knew that, Mike. Jeez.
Yeah. So hey, look, everybody has. I hate the term privilege, because it's just a politically charged hot button topic term. But everybody was born with certain advantages and certain disadvantages. Some of us are more handsome than each other. Some of us, had to drop out of ninth grade, but that, I mean, to a lot of people, that would have been a handicap, but somehow Matt made that into a benefit. So, whatever your advantage or disadvantage might be, you're going to figure out that you have strengths and weaknesses and everything. Capitalize on what you're good at, perfect what you're not good at. Don't be afraid of failure, and just keep pushing forward.
So the big difference between a rich person who's afraid of losing it all and a rich person who is okay with it is how they got there. If you had a strategy like win the lottery or time the market, invest in Bitcoin when it then blew up, it's hard to reproduce that.
Right.
If you invest one rental at a time and you learn a system to learn your area average rents, know how to negotiate the best rates, how to find the next deal, you kind of don't care. Like, you have the confidence that, yep, if I lost it all, it would probably take me 5 to 10 years to get back on my feet and be financially free again. But that person that found it with a secret strategy that can't be duplicated, that would be terrifying to lose it. Like the Dogecoin millionaire.
Yeah.
He held Doge till he had millions, and now he don't.
Yeah.
Kind of hard to duplicate.
3 millions. And now like 280K or 310K.
But you know what's sad though is that you got $280,000 right now, man. Yep, you're down 90%. But with that 280,000, that's your seed capital. You could go start a business, invest in real estate. You could start way further ahead than me or than most people, but they don't know how.
He borrowed that money, so he's still in it. Yeah, that's borrowed money.
Oh yeah. I don't spend my time following the Dogecoin millionaire, so I didn't know.
Yeah, it's an interesting story to say the least. Esther, like Mike's t-shirt, a step up from millionaire. That's true.
Yeah, this is actually purchased off of Grant Cardone's website for like $10. I liked it as well. The only time I ever bought clothing off of a Grant Cardone, and he was doing some video and he was like, right now we're going to sell this shirt for $10 if you buy it during the live stream. And I was like, yeah, why not?
Yeah,
Okay.
$10. That's a great price t-shirt. Chester Williams, it seems as though they might not be afraid of losing everything with the wealth generating knowledge, but it's likely they don't have the same knowledge, hence the fear of loss. Yeah, completely agree. Andrew P. I grew up in an upper middle class town, but mom had tenants, rent by the room until she was 40. I'm super thankful for her influence because I learned to stay in my lane and lead with frugality. I love it. Andrew P. Not in for the spooning. Consider my vote counted. Done.
Hater.
Exactly. Jag Walia. Jag, good to have you here. Never asked a question before. Excited to answer this one. For the first time, house hacking, is that okay to be negative for the unit you are living in? Yep. What is the tenant? What if the tenants have a lease left for 8 months or more at the time you are searching a property for house hacking? My answer real quickly on that is yes, you count your unit like it's a market rent unit because that's what it's going to be after you're there for a year or two. And you'd have to pay rent somewhere else. As far as a lease remaining for 8 months, that's not a bad thing. That gives you an 8-month run up to see, are they a good tenant? Do they pay on time? Are they difficult to live with? All those things are good. I don't mind inherited tenants. We found some of our best tenants that way. Honestly, we've found some of our worst tenants that way. That's the way it goes. But it's a way to learn, work with them, and see if you then want to renew the lease. But yeah, I always run the numbers on any of my house hacks that I had as if I was getting market rent for the unit that I was living in, because I was going to have to be paying that rent somewhere else. Deanna, any other adds to that?
Yeah, I think Jack's question was more to, you're doing a house hack, which means owner occupy. And if they have an 8 months remaining on their lease, I wouldn't have a problem with that. Your lender could, but no lender's ever going to check on where you live and you have a justifiable story. The requirement is you intend to live in the property. If there's an 8-month lease, that means in 9 months, you're going to live in the property. The lender might see the lease and have an issue before closing. An option there could be cash for keys. Worst case scenario, but a lot of places do have, even with a longer lease, if you're selling with the intent to occupy, I think the person has to be given 90 days notice, even if they have a longer lease. One of the only times you can actually end a lease early is when you have to move in for owner occupancy. But I would first start with, I'm doing a house hack as soon as their lease is over. If the lender had a problem, then I would try cash for keys. If not, then you just have to be the jerk that says, here's your 90-day notice. I'm owner occupying this purchase.
Yep. Love you, mean it. Bye.
Yeah, I moved into my first house hack and I was lucky because I bought a duplex and one side was rented and the other side was not. It had a very big problem tenant. They had to do some remodeling and they decided they were just getting out of the game and they put it up for lease. So I moved in. But to your first part of your question where you said, is it okay to buy a house hack that's negatively cash flowing, whatever? I mean, that's what I did. It's going to be hard to get something that's positively cash flowing. If you're moving into one of the units, if it's just a duplex, is that other side's rent going to completely cover everything? Well, a fourplex is a little bit more likely, but a duplex, no. But what happened for me is I took the $1,800 a month I was paying in rent. Right. And I dropped that cost down to like $300 a month in a mortgage payment because I had a tenant and then I had a roommate paying me $500. And so it covered 85-90% of the cost of the mortgage. What I've done is effectively create an ability for me to save $1,500 a month because I dropped that cost and now I can buy more properties. And then of course rents go up and as appreciation happens, you can refinance and it's just, you get on the property ladder. You won't regret it.
I agree. We're coming up on an hour here, so we'll power through the last set of questions. Cody Evers, looking forward to meet up in Vegas, as are we. How do we get Mike to 50K quicker? I think he needs to do more content.
Yeah. Oh, dude, that guy he doesn't work hard enough, dude.
So actually a way to get Mike to 50K quicker is one of the reasons why I'm probably not going to BPCon to present. Like I was invited and then it went away. And one of the reasons why I'm probably not a teaching assistant for their boot camps anymore is not very many people went on Bigger Pockets and commented on the videos where I was like the guest for the money show, right? Nobody's going to Bigger Pockets and saying in their Facebook groups, link a one rental at a time video that answers a question when it comes up. Reference Michael Zuber on Bigger Pockets forums. Bring Bigger Pockets because they have a large platform. If we can get Mike onto that, I think that is going to give him more exposure. And once people see what he has, that's where the subscribers will come from. Not that he's not doing great growing it organically on his own with the grassroots kind of format, but I think getting him back on Bigger Pockets where he used to be one of their content creators, like he did their blogs, getting him on with his own episode, I think would really help us get to that 50,000 sooner.
Yeah, sharing videos is actually one of the things that the algorithm checks for. Liking it and subscribing, but really if videos are getting shared, it's telling YouTube, hey, people like this enough to put it out to other people. So if you want to see Mike grow, which I know I do, I've thrown all my chips in betting on him. I think he has the potential to overtake and pass other larger financial real estate dudes on YouTube. But yeah, like the stuff, like it and share it. That will help.
I concur. Robert Farinelli, only thing about living poor is cheap food that wrecks your body, i.e. Poor to have water filter and have to drink crap in the water. Yeah, I drink tap, so I'm all good. I like that. I like that metallic taste. It's good, Johnny.
If you eat healthy and you work out every day, you're still going to die.
It's true.
You bums.
Yeah. I mean, Millennial Mike has a 6-pack and I have a keg. So there. Which would you rather have if you're a drinker? Hello, all three. I'm a newbie. Did all of you three start investing? Kurt Jones, did all of you three start investing in your backyard or far distance? Would you look? Is it about population? So I think we can go all pretty brief on this. Yes, my backyard. No for distance. I wouldn't do anything that was more than an hour from my front door. And population, I used to care and now I couldn't care less. I think that that's one of the greatest misnomers in real estate investing is population of an area.
Okay, I'll try to be brief too. Kurt, welcome. Thank you for hanging out with us. I invested locally. I think Millennium Mike is the only one right now that's investing at a distance. Population is what I call an economic driver. So I want certain things. I want side-by-side units because over-under has more noise complaints. I want washer dryer hookups in the units because it's less turnover because people without a laundry in the unit are just waiting for a place to open up, right? So I've got all these criteria for the properties that I prefer. But the economic drivers I want so that I have more than one source of tenants. I want something like a base, a port, college, hospital, Boeing, Amazon, like large population, right? It's one of those things in that list. So I invest around Tacoma, Washington, where there's a large population, but I also have a duplex in a town called McKenna, where there is about 300 or 400 people. They don't even have a city hall. They don't have a police department. They don't have, it's just a tiny little thing next to the largest military installation on the West Coast, I think. Joint Base.
It's the biggest in the country.
Right. So, but it's on the other side and it's in the middle of nowhere. So I have a ton of demand for that because a lot of people that get stationed at a military base are from rural areas and don't want to be in a big city.
I like that.
If you're looking at a place that doesn't have a lot of population, are there other economic drivers and sources of tenants? It's one of the factors that we look at. And Mike?
Yeah, investing in your backyard. If you want to get started, I would recommend starting by house hacking. And that probably means that you're going to need to live somewhere close to where you already live and where you already work and are established. So almost indefinitely, you're going to be investing starting out in your backyard. And I truly believe house hacking is the best strategy to get started if you have a long-term goal of real estate investing. Can you go at a distance after that? Yeah, sure. Of course you can. The population, not a huge factor. Now, the only concern would be, is a city depopulating at a crazy rate? Yeah. Like Gary, Indiana is. Yes. But is it right next door to 2 million plus people, Chicago? Yes. Yeah. I mean, you want to at least make sure you're not in some former gold mine town that's been dropping 10% for the last 10 years forever. That's probably not a great idea, but there's not a lot of those, honestly.
Yeah, I think Dion always talks about that too, where it's, you know, the number of jobs available in the area. And I think that that's key with any city or town. You can actually look at the town every year. They create a town report. You can look at that and you can see the largest employers in that town. And if you're wondering about other towns, just go to the other towns' websites and pull those up. It's usually in the job section. It will tell you who the largest employers are and how many people they employ. And then you can do the math kind of backwards from there. If you realize that, holy cow, this city is 30,000 people, but they have 90,000 people that work there and they're in this one company, it's a little bit risky. It's nice, but it can also be pretty risky because if that other company ever moves, and more companies are going to move in the next 5 years than I think have probably ever moved in history. There's going to be a lot of companies moving in the next few years for better tax opportunity, I think. Kurt Jones, honesty is the best policy. We agree, Kurt. Julius Davis, I don't recall you ever asking a question before, so I'm happy to answer this one for you. Do you see the interest rate dropping anytime soon? Dion's betting on it.
I am betting on it. And a lot of people kind of have the misconception that interest rates are based on what the Fed does with the Fed interest rate.
The Fed rate.
So the Fed talked about rates going up, so lenders' rates went up. Then the Fed raised rates and lenders' rates went down because they lend on margin. And there's two things going on. We either have quantitative easing, where the Fed is giving out a bunch of money and they're owning a bunch of assets, or we have quantitative tightening, where they are trying to offload their assets. And that's what we're seeing now. The lenders are more confident in the Fed's ability to get inflation under control because the Fed raised rates, so they compressed the margin. I don't see rates going down much further because the Fed is going to stay where it's at probably till early next year. My original bet was I would see rates come back down by the end of 2022. I think I shot it a little bit early, but as inflation gets under control, the Feds will then want to stimulate the economy to stop a recession, because the biggest threat to the government isn't a recession, it's deflation. And The the government is in a lot of debt, $30 trillion or something like that now. And when we have inflation, it's easier to pay off debt. So we want some inflation, but we don't want it out of control. So right now, what we're going to see is lenders compressing margin, but not going down much from where it is until the Fed starts to lower it again.
I agree with that. Mike, any thoughts?
I mean, it's all just speculation and conjecture at this point. I mean, we're trying to, the Fed is effectively trying to nail Jello to a wall. I mean, the more government intervention, the worse things get. The more government intervention they need, the worse things get. It's going to go up, down, sideways. Yeah. I mean, could we drop a little bit in the near future? I guess maybe, if they don't have the stomach for bad interest rates for the upcoming midterm election. And then when inflation doesn't hit its peak and we end up with another 9% number, and then they all panic about that and raise. Dude, this is why you got to be paying attention every day. It's always a good day to buy a great deal. You got to be looking at what today's numbers are going to be staying in contact with your lenders. It's just all over the place right now.
I concur. Larry Chong, howdy. Is this the REI firearms forum? Yes, it is.
Yeah, buddy.
LOL, I'm not surprised that Mike is the best shot, especially since he's the only active firearms user. It's true. Matt, you got to practice more to catch up when you retire, but not today. I do. All right. 5-part question or 5-part statement from RE3. This was the person that had 5 months from the property manager. No, they raised the rent from $9.50 to $10.50. They claimed too many people came from the eviction moratoriums. So they had a lot of applicants. They claim all of them were highly unqualified. So the first thing I would do is I would start wanting feedback, documented feedback on that. I would want to start seeing some of the applications to check up on that, if you will. Yeah, it's my only property in Little Rock. I have only 2 properties with a PM. This is one. It's the only problem child. Yeah, I mean, sometimes the market's just not worth staying in if you can't make it work and you don't have the team. I just talked with one of the PMs. The guy said, do not self-manage. They waived the placement fee, and he said, please give them a chance. They know the current tenant, LOL. My passive syndications fortunately pay me low to mid 6 figures, and they take almost no time the whole year. Managing a property and manager is the worst. So I confront the 4 to 5K that the LR property is in the hole, but it would take like 1 to 2 years of the current tenant paying without any major issue, simply break even. Yeah, exactly. My family came from the USSR in 1991. After collapse of the Berlin Wall, my father became a semi-famous set designer and scenic artist. I got my MD and did well in real estate. Immigrant hustle is real. I agree. I revel in hardship and challenge. You really grow as a person. I concur.
That is a huge laundry list of questions and comments right there. First of all, I'm glad you came to America. It sounds like you're a hard hitter, so well done, stud. But here's the truth. Every single question, all of everything that you just read to us, should absolutely be asked of who your friends are that you network with in that area as other investors. Because I can't tell you if they're lying to you. I can't tell you what the rents are. If you do not have a network of other people that you can trust and take this exact concerns and these exact findings to and go, hey man, what do you think? Am I getting screwed over here? Are they ripping me off? Who do you use as a property manager? Oh, why don't you use these people as a property manager? This question is for those people. You've only got one property in the area. I don't know why you picked this area. It might have just been the allure of cheap houses, which I understand. Don't get me wrong. But dude, right now, after this live stream, of course, and after you like the video and sub to the channel, you're going to go on YouTube and whatever city it was it Oklahoma or something like that? Oklahoma? YouTube
Arkansas,
videos. Arkansas. Okay. Real estate advice for this city in Arkansas, or should I buy rentals in this city in Arkansas? Because there is guaranteed some small-time YouTuber making videos about that market, about that area, and he's the guy you want to chat with. Then you're going to go to Instagram and you're going to search the same thing on Instagram because there's some small-time dude who's posting his deals, and you're going to DM this guy and comment on his stuff and like his profile and have a conversation with him about it because he's the expert and the future friend you need. And he's not relevant. Nobody knows of him, but you're going to go find this guy because he's out there trying to put his message out. So that's who you need to talk to.
Dion, anything to add?
Nope, that's great advice. You need somebody in the area that you trust, and you trust them so much, you think they would come to your funeral. That's my litmus test on if I was going to invest at a distance, I would want that.
I agree. Larry Chong, how do you guys suggest finding an eviction attorney for doing room rental leases? Any interesting stories about getting roommate to leave when they don't work out?
Unpopular.
break up with
opinion.
mine.
Damn, what was that?
You just break up with yours and they move out.
I just break up with mine. I'm just like, it's not working out, baby. You're gonna have to go find some other guy.
From an attorney perspective, go to the district court and literally hang out for a few hours and see the guys that are there on eviction day and watch the guys that you're just like, damn, I would not want to go up against that guy. That's how I scope out who I actually went in and I sat there for 4 hours one day and I watched one attorney handle 12 cases. And I was like, this guy's a freaking machine and pumps these things out. And the judge is just like, because they know he is dialed in. He is elite. And then I went and I met with him and he is hilariously nervous. And then I looked and I walked out and I go, what's that on the wall? And he goes, what? And he goes, my diploma. I go, no, the paper next to it. And he goes, oh, that's my Mensa membership.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, dude, the guy, and he's like on like 100, whatever dose of Ritalin you got, he's like 400x. He's like this. He's just like always, and I was just like, he's just awesome. He's literally a tornado. He's awesome.
Going to the courts is a great way to find an eviction attorney. I joined the local anti-landlord Facebook groups and I watched the comments of who they hated the most and reached out to her and retained her.
Smart, very smart.
Exactly. Watch who these other guys, watch the people, who they're going after. That's always the way to do it. Chad Wilhelm, my tenant's renter's insurance agent recommended to them to not include me on their policy. Yeah, no. He said it would be okay to list me as an interested party, so I would be notified of any changes. Thoughts? I don't know what your state law is, but who else are they going to pay? They're renting from you. Who else are they going to pay? Why wouldn't you be on it? Yeah, so I would be pushing back on that. I would talk to your attorney and understand what the ramifications of that are. Chris Webb, I agree. I always share your content on BP, especially to new investors. Thanks, Chris. RE3, my first investment in real estate was house hacking my 2-bedroom in Waikiki, Hawaii, before I knew about bigger pockets, cash on cash, ROI, or anything financial. Nice. Dividend Dave, you need a tax planner and not merely a tax preparer. Yeah, I think I agree. I think I had a CPA and he was really a preparer. And I went to not a preparer. I went to somebody who actually plans it out. Any thoughts on that, guys?
Dividend Dave's a good guy to reach out to because that's actually the field he works in. So
truer words have never been spoken.
there you go.
Yeah, he attends Dion's monthly meetups. He actually drives all the way from Bellingham to Tacoma, which is, for those of you who don't know, it's like almost a 3-hour drive just to come visit. So he's a good dude. Good dude.
I'm gonna get him one more time, Mike, if you can make it next month, because Dividend's moving to his duplex that he purchased.
Oh, so he's in South Carolina or something, I think, right?
Well, he's not there yet. He's leaving to go there, but they're closing.
Okay. Right. Well, congratulations, stud.
Good
nice.
for you, Dividend Dave. Good for you. Kurt Jones, thanks for the advice. Like the economic drivers. You're welcome. Dr. Ron Paul, appreciate you attending. From a policy perspective, e.g. local, state, Federal Reserve, what policies should be implemented to increase home ownership while also not gutting investments?
Way to go deep on us.
Yeah, that's real tough because there's conflicting feelings, because as a free market guy, as a capitalist guy, do I want the government to come in and step in and start taking over and taking action? Anytime the government intervenes, we have negative consequence after negative consequence. That being said, I also want to see the average person have access to the same opportunities I have. So something recently that Canada did was they made it illegal for non-nationals to invest in real estate in their market. And I don't know how I feel about that, because on the surface, do I really want a whole bunch of foreign nationals coming in and buying up all the houses that they don't even rent out? They just know it's a safer place for their money than keeping it in China where the government's going to take it from them. So I can't blame them for what they're doing. But at the same time, I want Americans to have access to American property, and they're first in freaking line. But is government intervention the correct? Dude, that's a very tough question. It's a political question. I think that's for somebody smarter than me, to be honest.
Dion?
Good luck, fellas.
But Matt's the smartest one here.
Oh,
Hands
dear
down,
God.
no questions. I think we've seen it a few times where the government tried to get involved to make home ownership easier to get to. We have programs for economically disenfranchised people, which means you can buy more house than you can afford. And then we have foreclosures. We had adjustable rate programs, and we had ninja loans. So 2005 to 7 caused 2008 because people were borrowing more than they should on properties that were financed more than 100%, and it didn't end well. I like some of the systems that we have now. I like that an investor needs to come up with more money down, making it a lower barrier to entry for somebody who wants to own the property. I don't like the education of people saying, well, investing firms like BlackRock or Blackstone or whichever one of those two invest in real estate is buying all the properties because they, all of those iBuyer type things owned 2%. And now it is growing, but it's not like they own half of the properties out there. The actual largest group of home buyers in the country rose from 37% to 43%, and that's millennials. So it's not like we've got some of the we've got education problems where people are being told things. And then we have the biggest problem that stops home ownership is fear gets clicks. Look at every video that's saying for 10 years, and I literally have a stack of reasons why every year there's been a reason why you can't buy now. You need to wait to buy. So even YouTube University is pushing for people to not get on the property ladder. We need more people to share content that says, here are the current challenges. Here's why it's always a good day to buy a great deal and how we're doing it. And I don't think we're seeing much of that. We see a video where we talk about the 2022 housing crash gets 300,000 views.
Mm-hmm.
How I'm buying my next deal, 600 views.
Yeah, exactly right. I think the fastest way and the best way to fix the problem is slow. And the best way is you make algebra and calculus electives in high school, and you make everyday math true, balancing your checkbook, understanding a mortgage, understanding a credit score, understanding debt to income ratio, understanding all the things that you need to survive as an adult, all of those financial decisions, showing them the power of owning a house, the power of investing, making all of those guaranteed courses and not electives, but pushing a lot of things that really, truly 90% of people, 95% of people are never going to use calculus on their day-to-day basis. Go ahead, argue with me on it. 95% of people are not going to.
You play pool?
Yeah, and yeah, I play pool just fine, and I'm not figuring anything. I'm
That's
literally
geometry, not calculus.
But either way, the best way to fix this problem is to do away with all of these silly things that made sense 70 years ago in high school. Much of them have not changed. Much of them need to change because, largely speaking, the reason our students are behind is because what they're learning doesn't matter. They need to be learning things that matter on the day-to-day application of life. And I think that for so many years, college. You know how much welders make? You know how much plumbers make? You know how much electricians make? There's no shame being in the game. In fact, it's far more honorable, and it's going to make sure that you never go without. So the way that I would change it is by making so many of these different things that are required in high school elective, and require people to be able to essentially pass a life equivalency test before they leave, because they need to be paying into the system. They want to be part of the system. And then, yeah, you want to get out of the system, all good. But there's not going to be any program paying you to not be in the system. That's how I would fix it. All-nighter hider. Thanks, Dion. I love and agree with the macro talk. The Fed's in a tighter corner than they were yesterday. Absolutely. Andrew P., really appreciate what you guys do. Pouring into others looks great on y'all, and we appreciate all the time you share with us. And thank you to your families and kid for Mike sharing you with us. Very welcome. Chester Williams, to Dr. Ron Paul's question, hopefully the administration doesn't attempt to spur homeownership with incentives, but we all know they will. It's the giveaway administration. That will happen. Keith Hager, self-managed from the start, question mark. That is the only way to learn to work and work to learn. Dion, thoughts? Agreed?
I agree with everything but the word only.
Yes.
I think it's a solid strategy. A lot of people should self-manage and then get a property manager so they understand when they're being ripped off. But I think it's entirely possible for like Millennial Mike, let's say we'll take house hacking out. You find Matsky Finance. He's investing in an area. You trust him. He's got his systems in place.
Yeah.
Could have invested completely without ever self-managing, which you do your house hack, you self-manage. So like I said, in that sentence, agree with everything, but only way.
Yeah, a couple of my friends I've helped get started with their first property in Gary, Indiana, using all the same people I have. If they have questions, they know they can trust me. I've known them for years. You know, I mean, they're having success, same as me, just minus the house hacking. So you can get started, but all of it, there's absolutely advantages to starting by self-managing. You know, you learn what it's like to look for a tenant. You know, maybe you have to develop yourself into the type of person who can have conversations because maybe you're a little introverted. You're going to have to interview a tenant, talk with them, deal with their complaints. You know, there's going to be benefits and things like that.
RE3, thanks, Mike. Great advice. I'll work on that. I agree. I thought that was great advice.
That's my boy.
All-nighter hider. Since I have taken responsibility of my finances, planned long-term, and upgraded my net worth to my net worth, my net worth has grown like crazy. It's exactly it.
Yeah.
It's exactly it. REI Stoners, my phone died while listening to you guys at work, and you guys are still on. You guys rock. Thank you very much. Julius Davis, what are some of the things you can add to add value to your house? We're already getting ready to buy new windows, as it's a historical house and the windows are almost 100 years old. I would say look at my landlord reviews. A lot of those products I add to give it a better look, a better feel, and quite frankly, a cleaner look and a cleaner feel, and one that's more modernized that people will then really kind of they're more expecting or hoping for. It's really different. I know with historical homes, because we have historical homes as well, it can be challenging. The outside, your rules are made for you. On the inside, you can kind of do whatever you want. But yeah, I think it's just about you want to be able to appreciate the detail of the time, but you don't want to ever have to deal with the pain of having lived in a 1886 home with 100-year-old windows. So yeah, that's my take on that piece. All-nighter hider, REI Stoners, do you know bird extracts? Well, we'll let him answer that. Chester Williams, brilliant move. Dion talk financial freedom about reverse engineering, finding a great eviction attorney. I agree.
Yeah.
Cashflow Johnny Ramirez, sup real estate freaks. What's up, Johnny?
What up, G?
All-nighter hider, college is for intellectually lazy and I'm not gonna say that. But yeah, I mean, I think everybody gets to pick their journey, and I think that there's no guaranteed outcomes, and that's just the way it goes. And you're responsible for the decisions that you make, and what comes of those, you get to own and reboot and recalibrate and tackle the next. Keith Hager, Dr. Ron Paul asked legislatures that own property investments to understand the tax benefits of ownership, honorable and hands-on. It's the same. It is a people game. I agree. Nicholas Massey, I'm a high school teacher, and our campus teaches financial literacy to the kids, one of the most needed classes in school today. Nicholas, you are probably 1 in 100 high schools that teach financial literacy, and I think that is the most important thing we can teach our kids today. Samuel's 4, and he can explain to you debt. He's in it. Julius Davis, I live in Indiana and have always stayed away from Gary. What made you decide to invest in that market? You can give that brief.
Yeah, so I kind of already covered this earlier, Julius. I just recommend go back and watch the live stream, because we went in depth, but ultimately it came down to I had a very trusted individual who was investing and successfully investing there, and I just copied and pasted his methods and his success into my own life. And that's what I recommend anyone do. Don't reinvent the wheel. Find somebody you know and trust and copy them. Plagiarize.
It's not a bad path. Nicholas Massey, I'm here in SoCal. I know Zuber is, he owns in Fresno. He's actually from Mountain View. Does he share his California lease, or should I get it off of Bigger Pockets Pro? I don't know. I don't know if he would. I would ask him. Does he?
I would ask him. I haven't seen him say that he would. He was very, very careful for the longest time. He wouldn't talk about LLCs. Like, so he doesn't want to put himself at risk sharing his lease, and if it had a problem that caused a problem for you, could make a lease. So I would ask him. If not, Bigger Pockets Pro is a good way. Some states have a landlord tenant resource page where you can get your lease from. Zillow has a lease. Apartments.com has a lease. There's several ways to get those leases. I found the least effective way was to go to a local property management company because most of the ones that I've seen suck.
Oh, they're garbage.
Like printed
so
at
bad.
funny angles from the 70s on it's like, how are you running a business?
Yeah, lazy. They hung a shingle. Robert Farnell, the only thing I can think of is good for calculus in real estate is finding maximum volume, only using times square feet of material. No. Yeah, not going to use it. I did use trig to calculate how small a U-Haul I can rent to move a 12-foot long countertop. Yeah, see, I just would have been like, that one's 14 feet. All-nighter hider, Nicholas Massey. I'm in San Diego. If you don't mind mentioning, what high school is that? You can certainly answer if you want to, Nicholas. Chester Williams at Julius Davis, not to steal Millennial Mike's thunder, but the main insight seems that Gary, Indiana is about half an hour from Chicago as a suburb.
Yeah, I mean, that's a contributing factor, but not the primary reason that I chose Gary, Indiana. It really did come down to what I ultimately preach of. Find somebody that you know and trust who has systems in place who will help you and mentor you. And then when they give you advice, take the advice. So I took the advice given to me.
Yeah.
So I have a question before we wrap up here, Mike.
Yeah.
Zuber does a 1 hour live stream on Saturdays. Matt does 3 hours Sunday mornings. I do 3 hours Tuesdays. You're coming up on 3 hours of sitting in that chair.
Oh, yeah.
How's it feel?
Oh, it's good. I mean, yeah, my butt's a little bit sore, and things like that. I ran out of my water bottle. I probably should have had two, but it's been fun.
You need a bigger container.
No kidding. Yeah. I genuinely am grateful that you guys invited me on. I had a good time. So seriously, thanks for the opportunity.
Loved having you. Always good to have somebody with other skills that we don't have on here because there's plenty of people like that. So excited to have that. Mike, appreciate you attending. Dion, tell everybody where they can find you, my friend.
Right here on YouTube, Dion Talk Financial Freedom. My live streams are Tuesday afternoons. They start at 4 p.m. Pacific.
Absolutely. And Mr. Mike?
Dude, you can find me on YouTube or Instagram, on Michael Zuber's channel, on your channel. Just type in Millennial Mike. I'm lounging around somewhere probably.
That's very true. And me, Lumberjack Landlord, Sundays, 11:30 a.m. We do our live stream for usually about 3 hours. And then you'll see me with a myriad of people throughout the course of the week. You guys, thanks so much for hanging out with me. Thanks so much for all of our subscribers and people that watch. Please hit the like button on the way out if we answered any question that was any help to you, and make sure you subscribe. And like I said, check these guys out on their live streams. And in Millennial Mike's case, I guess I'll just have to do a live stream for someone to have to check out.
Yeah.
Dion?
Maybe.
Can you leave the Zoom up, Matt, and close down YouTube so we can talk about all the stuff that would actually get us sued?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Guys, appreciate you guys watching with us, and we'll end the stream there. Mike Zuber, hope you had a great couple days away, learning lots of stuff that you're going to bring back to the crew. We're excited to hear what that is. And guys, thanks so much for joining the live stream. We will talk at you soon. Appreciate you.
Are we good? Can we talk about all of Dion?